Hey everyone, how's it going? It's David from the Geek Garage Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 45. I have two amazing people with me today. One, he's a little less amazing, but that's only because I see him on a semi-regular basis, and I'm kind of used to his bullshit by now. Ted White, how are you, buddy?
Hurt, currently, based on that introduction, but I will recover.
Yes, hoisted by thy own petard, once again.
That is... We're going to talk about what that actually means, because...
Oh, does that not apply
no,
in this situation?
Even,
okay,
my bad. Like 0%.
Okay, well, me and Bill Shakespeare are going to have a little English lesson, I guess, a literature lesson. Yeah. But other than me misquoting and misdirecting Shakespeare lines, are you doing okay?
Honestly, I'm more offended at the fact that you misquoted Shakespeare than I am that you called me useless, but I'll recover somehow. So,
I mean, I'll take that as a win in my book.
I just love that he called him Bill. I mean, that Chris Farley was the only one I knew was allowed to do that, and it's because they were on a first name basis. But sure,
right? Yeah, Bill Shakespeare, one of the best fucking skits of all time.
Willie Shakes, as his friends.
Yeah. Man, I fucking wish that was his nickname. But before we get too sidetracked, because that's going to happen in this episode.
That's going to happen.
No, that's just going to be the theme of this episode, is getting sidetracked. This sultry voice and man sitting across from me is none other than Jaren Prince.
Hi.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm actually really good. Thank you so much for having me on here. I heard Ted was going to be here, and I was like, I have to be on this episode. So
he's here. But he's not here. He's remote. But
the police actually called me and they were like, "We'll arrest you if you all three get in the same room. It'll just be too much." And I was like, "I'm brown. They'll do it. They'll fucking do it." So I didn't want to tempt fate.
I can't believe Sting would do you like that, man. I haven't heard the police in a while.
Yeah. Well, it turns out the record's on Sullen, so they gotta,
No, I understand that.
They have to turn into the actual police.
Yes.
It's fine. I mean, when you hold an orgasm in that long, something happens, so it's fine.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no getting around. There's no beating around the bush. Ad-lib masturbation
That's the exact sound
joke.
He makes when he comes.
Yes. He actually says beat around the bush and then he ejaculates.
Every single time, and it's really bad for the sex doll. But
wait, where did the sex doll come from?
We don't talk about that. That was a gift from Steven Tyler in 1972.
Oh,
that sex doll has seen some shit.
Literally,
just like Steven Tyler. I mean, Steven Tyler, he's slept with so many women that he's starting to look like one.
Oh yeah, no, that happens. He's drank so many juices. He's got the estrogen from it. It's fine. Which I understand. That's why I have my long hair. So
that makes sense.
Oh no, man, that makes dollars. You got to charge for that shit. Sorry, am I allowed to cuss on this?
No,
yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
No swearing. It's a family-friendly podcast.
Actually, yes, swearing is encouraged, and I give you a nickel for every swear word that you say.
Oh, you don't have to do that. I used to have to pay $1 for every swear word, and then I stopped being a billionaire. So
hey, we had that same kind of system growing up in my household. There was a quarter thing where
you actually had the quarter thing.
Yeah, where they were like a swear word, put it in the coin jar, and that was we had a pretty full jar like at all times.
We were the opposite. My parents swore like I don't know. I would like to say like sailors, but that'd be giving sailors a bad name. My parents saw swearing as their native language. Sure. They didn't speak English that well because they were from Arkansas. Well, my mom was, but my dad was from New York, and that's their entire native tongue. So it was very much a difference thing. I actually was the black sheep. I didn't swear out loud, at least, until I was like 16 years old. And I remember when it first happened, a good buddy of mine and I we were all going on a huge camping trip illegally. But it was across this train tracks, and this person owned the land, and they told us I could, but when they told us they owned the land. But
what the hell else are you going to do
exactly.
in Arkansas?
There was literally, it's a town of 3,000 in the middle of nowhere. And so we were going to go camping, and my buddy comes, I'm walking downhill towards him. And at the time, you have to remember the time, it was like 2007, it was like 2006. At the time, my buddy goes down to one knee and uppercuts me directly into the testiculars. And I blacked out for a second.
No, let me interject here for a second, because there are going to be people out there listening that are like, what the fuck was going on in the mid-2000s? And I would just like to say, I can confirm everything is true. We used to do that. You have to understand, this is before cell phones. We had to improvise. Right. All right? We didn't have Twitter. We had dick punching contests.
Right. Not only were we dudes, but we were dudes who were easily amused.
I'm really surprised like the modern everyday cup didn't catch on for everyday use. It just didn't.
It really has so many everyday practical uses.
I know you can drink out of it. I mean, it's pretty nuts.
You're not supposed to. Okay. Well, maybe.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of them have like holes for like circulation, I guess. But I mean, you can just cover
the wrong kind of tape.
Could I use a Bart Simpson mug? Is that what that?
Sure.
Well, that way he could eat your shorts, man.
Yes.
I see what you did there. All right. Well, I would say that this has already gone off the rails, but that would be based on the assumption that it was once on the rails.
Where we're going, we don't need rails.
Exactly.
Trains are an outdated form of travel.
Tell that to Back to the Future 3.
I would rather not admit that exists.
So today we're basically going to be talking about Kevin Smith for the most part. Like it's going to be like 3/4 Kevin Smith and then 1/4 like bullshit.
Oh yeah. No,
I feel like that's a very generous estimate.
I mean, it's probably going to be more like 50-50 if anything, just like most of his movies, but there's no, it's gonna be fantastic. I have been a lifelong fan of Kevin Smith. He, like I said, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, so my love of Kevin Smith started with the snowball scene in Clerks.
Okay.
Which I saw whenever I was 7 years old, and I turned to my mom and said, "What's a snowball?" And she explained to me, "Oh, that's when you kiss a dude with his cum in your mouth." And I was like, "Okay, Mom, thanks."
Did she actually say the word cum?
Yeah, no, my mom, like I said, my family was very different than 90% of families I've ever met. And
so I'm assuming that by this time you had either had the sex talk or some version of the sex talk had come through the grapevine.
No,
No. Oh, okay.
No. I can actually tell you my dad's sex talk. It happened whenever I was 14 years old. He literally walks into my room.
So like 7 years later.
Yeah. He walks into my room and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey." And I said, "Hey." He goes, "What you doing?" I was like, "Playing Game Boy." He goes, "Cool." He goes, "You know what sex is?" And I
sex is when the penis goes in the end.
I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "You know what condoms are?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay." He goes, "So good talk." And he walked out. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so he was like, my parents are very much about, my dad was born in the early 60s. My mom was born in 2 years later in the early 60s. And so they went through the 70s and 80s. And so their idea of sex was, hey, if you can get it, go for it.
Right.
And so, and not to speak badly about my family, but I have one sister directly, and I have, I think, 13 steps. So wow. That tells you anything.
All right.
So yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much any parent's like dream scenario when like you don't have to have uncomfortable conversations.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that uncomfortable one I just put us in. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh no, I wasn't like be like, hey, like backhandedly, like you put us in an uncomfortable conversation. That was just an aside.
He was though.
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Thanks, guys. All right. Well, so you kind of already touched on like your first brush with Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
My question, one of my first questions was like, so I first came to know you. We were chatting about this before we pushed record through me doing the recording for Andrew and Connor when they were doing Ned and Ted for conventions.
Yes.
And for those of you that don't know, my buddies Andrew and Connor, who helped me get the podcast started a few years ago, they had this shtick called Ned and Ted where they were two backwoods hillbillies. We would go film at conventions, mainly anime conventions, because that's the majority of
what we have here.
Right. And we would go around and film cosplayers, mostly interview style, where we would try and get them to be in character and ask them stuff about their character. And the primary basis around the whole thing was that Ned and Ted thought that everything was real. And so I don't believe I was around for the very first time they met you. I think it might have been one, like the MTAC that took place, not at the Sheraton. It was like the last year it was at, it might have been the convention center downtown. Like
it probably was the convention center downtown. I had 2 MTACs at the convention center downtown. And so I think I had all the MTACs at the convention center downtown. But yeah, so I started going to MTAC, Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, fantastic convention if you ever get a chance to go. I started going to it, I think Omega, or it was either Omega or Devil's Dozen. It was the one, but I know that it was worth it. And what would happen is I had a good friend of mine, the very first one I ever went to. I had a good friend of mine that would go to these MTACs. And so I was living in Arkansas at the time, in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And so I was like, man, I would love to go to a convention. I've been a nerd my entire life, a geek. I love anime and I love everything. And so I was like, cool. And they were like, do you want to go? And I was like, I mean, do you have room for me? And they're like, yeah, you can sleep on the floor. And I was like, oh, so
that's nice of them.
Fine. And they were like, well, you got to pay for the part of the room. I was like, deal. And they were like, and you got to buy a ticket. And I was like, deal. Anything to get me there. And so we drove at like, I think 2:00 in the morning.
Nice.
We got up and drove all the way from Corning, Arkansas to Nashville, Tennessee, which is like 5 hours, 4.5 to 5 hours.
Okay.
To be here. And then, my very first one, I walked in and there was a line from pre-register for people to get their badges that was like around the block. But if you walked in and bought your ticket right then, it was like no wait. And so I walked in, got my ticket, and I was in before they were. And I looked around at the entire convention center and went, oh God, this feels right. And so weirdly enough, my very first one there, I was not actually cosplaying Silent Bob.
Okay.
My very first one there, I went as Guy Fawkes for V for Vendetta.
Okay.
Because I had the Halloween costume.
Sure.
I didn't know what I was going into. I was like, cool. And I had a fantastic time. That was like me
at my first convention. I was like, I was too afraid to cosplay because I didn't really know what the hell I would cosplay as or what I would do.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of fell out of my league. But as soon as I stepped foot in there, I was like, I fucking want to do this thing. So I went home and like threw together some like stupid ass cosplay just so I could be in costume the next day.
That was kind of my thing, but I couldn't go back home the next day. And so I did Guy Fawkes the entire time I was there. But I grew up on, even in the small place I was big into theater and I loved theater and I loved character acting. And so I was like, okay, if you're going to be Guy Fawkes, you have to be Guy Fawkes. So I had the entire costume on. I would walk around and all I would do was quote lines for V for Vendetta.
Okay.
And I realized how cringy that is now, but at the time I thought it was badass. So I did that for a long time. And then the last day there, a guy came up and he was like, hey, look, it's Guy Fats. And I was like,
oh my God, I'm sorry. That's an excellent room.
No, I know. I was in awe. I was like, oh, that was so good. And no one's thought of it till now. I'm so proud of that guy. But I was like, I can't do this. I got to have a better costume. Because at the time, my costume was a cheap Halloween costume I had gotten a few years beforehand. And so when I went back the next year, I had been building a Blunt Man costume.
Okay.
And so I had the shirt ready. I had it ordered. I had it coming in. I had the coat. I had the hat I made myself. I had all of it down, had a lightsaber that I built with a bong end on it. Mm-hmm. And I had it ready. But the shirt ended up not going to be able to be there until after leaving for MTAC.
Okay.
And this was my second one. So I was like, fuck it. I got a Jay and Silent Bob cosplay, a Silent Bob cosplay I love. People call me Silent Bob anyway. I'll go do it. So I went into that. And the very first day there, a guy walks up and he looks me in the eye and he goes, if you talk, it's going to ruin this for me. And I was like, I'm never fucking saying a word. And so I went through that entire goddamn convention not saying anything.
Wow.
I went through all 3 days of it not talking to anyone. And that includes the people I was rooming with. I
Holy shit!
Thing. I ordered food. I went I went everywhere without saying a single word, and I made it. But I did break that for one person.
Okay.
My wife.
Makes sense.
Soft.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Nice
I mean,
guy.
I was until I saw her. But at that point, because what happened is I saw this group of Deadpools jumping around and humping each other.
Because that's exactly what Deadpool cosplayers do.
And so I was like, well, fuck it. I'm joining in. So I jumped
And why
in
wouldn't you?
as Silent Bob and started going. And they had a booth. I didn't realize it was in front of a booth. And the booth guy was like, hey, you want to do risque cosplay? And I didn't know what risque cosplay was. But I was like, yes, I do. But I didn't say anything. I just shook my head yes. And so he had me choose a song. I did it all silently. And I ended up going out there, and they let me go last. And I went out there, and that was my very first risque cosplay as Silent Bob. And for anyone who doesn't know what risque cosplay is,
yes,
it is
elaborate because we're coming back to this.
It's an 18+ panel in which you go out there and perform a burlesque routine as a character. You have to choose a song, and most people prepare. I did not prepare. And my very first year out there, I got 3rd place out of like 16 people. And so I was like, oh, this is all. And the next day you couldn't tell me I wasn't bulletproof. I was determined. And that's when I met my wife, because she came up to me and she told me she loved my performance and it was so good. And I said, what's your name? Because that was my one time I broke, and that was it. And I have that moment to think for the rest of my life. So I'm happy about that one.
That's awesome. I always heard, I think it was Brianna who, of course, she's a mutual friend of ours, and she was on the podcast a couple weeks back for
fantastic job, by the way.
The marketing episode. Thank you.
She's incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She fucking knows her shit. Yeah, she's a badass.
Inside out. She is a fantastic human being.
Yeah. And I think she was the one who told me about you meeting Aaron, your wife, at MTech, and but I knew that, but I never knew the story. So that's awesome to have you finally break it down.
Yeah, MTech changed my life, and I'm never been happier about it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned risque cosplay. That comes back around, doesn't it?
Which time? Because I
right, because you did it a couple times, but I don't think it was 2019, maybe 2018.
It was not last year. The year before. No, it was 2017. 2017.
Was it 2017?
Yeah.
Okay, and you won, right?
Yeah, I won.
Yeah.
I had been doing it all those years, and I built a story arc for it because, like I said, okay, so when I do cosplay, I do it not just cosplay, but when I do Silent Bob specifically, I do it as Silent Bob, the real Silent Bob. What if he walked into an anime convention just out of the blue by himself and didn't know what was happening, but he was like, I'm here for it. I'm just vibing pretty much. And so I tried to build this mythos around him, and people seem to really like it. And so one of the things with the risque cosplay is that I ended up going through, and the first time I did it, I got 3rd place. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do it again because it was just fun. And so when I went to do it the next time, I didn't win. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it again because now he's the underdog and this is going to work. And so people just kept buying into it. And then all of a sudden, I think the 3rd year I was doing it, people would come up to me and they were like, are you going to be in risque cosplay? And I was like, and I was just shaking my head yes. And they're like, okay, cool. We're going to be there just to see you. And so people would just flood the thing to come see Silent Bob go last.
That's awesome.
And so it built up this mythos. And someone ran up to me at one point, and she was talking to her friend, and she was like, this is the guy I was telling you about. And I was like, oh no, word of me is spreading. And then it just, at one point I saw people coming up to me and they would take pictures with me. And then I was like, well, that happens to all cosplayers. One guy asked me for my autograph, and that was weird.
All right.
Yeah, right. I was like, he knows I'm just cosplaying, right? Because there was no way.
I'm not actually Silent Bob.
I'm not actually Kevin Smith. And I was trying to portray this, but I don't know how. Because the very first year I did it in a cheap Halloween costume that I had put together myself. The second year I did it, after I met my wife and everything, she told me all the tax income that was coming in, my income tax, all of it was from before I met her, really. She was like, you can use that for whatever you want. And I was like, oh, that was a mistake. So I went completely 100% screen accurate Silent Bob. I have the right shoes. I have the right coat. The coat is made by the only place in the world that makes his coats, and is made to actual specification of his coat. I have the hat directly from the same place that makes his hats.
Okay.
I have a screen use lighter that I won in an eBay auction. So the nail Zippo is from an eBay auction that I won. And it's all 100% screen accurate. And I even went super in detail. When I shaved my beard, I put up a grid pattern on his beard from different angles, and I shave it the exact same. I went super in depth with this, and I way farther than I should have. But at the same time, it was the most fun thing in the world to me. And I was so into it. And I just, as it kept spreading, I was like, okay. And so the time I won, I entered it, and I had already made up my mind. I was like, if I don't win this time, I think it's time just to let it go.
Sure.
Because I've been doing it for all these years, and other guys have now joined the competition. Because when I first joined, there were no other guys in it.
Right.
And I was like, other guys have joined the competition.
Like hyped it up a little bit.
Yeah, because they see that if I'm able to get up there with my size, by the way, if anyone's listening, I am not a small human being.
I'm going to get Ted to enter it this year.
Please do. Please do.
No, Ted has self-respect, so that's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah, no. Jaren has no self-respect. I'm going to be honest with you there.
I think it's kind of a requirement that you have little to no self-respect.
Well, I mean, no, because some of the women up there are insanely talented, and they're incredible what they do, and they build their own costumes, and every year they rehearse like mad. I will happily go in for the fact that these women and men that go up there put 110% of themselves into this.
Oh, yeah.
I am super proud of every single one of them. And here comes this Joe Schmo me just coming up there and being like, yeah, I'll just go up here and do my thing, and people cheer for me. And it's just the craziest shit in the world that it happened. But whenever it finally happened, this one guy had entered, and he was incredible. Mm-hmm. He was such a good dancer, and he was.
Do you remember his cosplay?
I don't, but I remember that he was in insane kinds of shape.
Okay.
And so
sure.
The man had like a V and an 8-pack, and I was like really worried at that point, because I was like, well, I have a keg, so there's not anything like that.
I'm getting some pretty strong SNL vibes of the Chippendales routine between.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
you are not wrong.
I'm
That's yeah. I've actually thought about doing the Chris Farley Chippendales routine a couple times, but I wanted to get Silent Bob done first. And so the very first that time I did it, they pulled us up on stage, and I was like, well, this is another year of me not winning it. I hit my peak with the first year winning third. It's gonna be fine. And I was like, that'll be my end of me doing it. And then they announced third place. It wasn't me. And then they announced second place, and it wasn't me. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm out.
Right.
And they announced first, and it was me. And I started crying. I was like, clearly you have made a mistake, human beings, because I am just a large fat man up here shaking his ass. And like my history with it, I've been pulled off the stage before. I had to be physically pulled off the stage because they had a law whenever it was held in a small hotel in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Uh-huh. They had a law in Murfreesboro that you're only allowed to show so much of your ass. And my boxers at the time obviously did not get the memo for that law.
All right.
And so they started going in good places for me as a human being, bad places for others as a human being.
Sure.
And they were like, oh, no, we got to get you off stage. And so they rushed me off the stage.
Oh, my God.
Quick. They were like, if it would have gone on any further, it would have shut down Risque.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, no, I can't have that. And I was so worried that it was going to be shut down.
Right.
But when they called me and I won, I was, I think, over the moon about it, man. It was Silent Bob as the character that I portray him, not as just as Kevin Smith portrays him, getting his arc. It was him going from the beginnings to this point now where it's the end of the movie. He's won the thing. Everyone's celebrating. And I was on top of the moon, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think word kind of trickled through the grapevines, like, after you had won, and I think I might have even heard like people talking about it in the hallway afterwards, or maybe the next morning. And then like I heard Andrew and Connor and Dylan talking about it. And then that morning, like we ran into you, and I want to say you were either with you might have been with Aaron and your son Grayson, right?
Yeah, Grayson. Okay. Yeah.
And you guys were there, and like you were still like about to cry.
Oh yeah.
Because you were just like, I can't believe I can't believe it.
Well, that's because it's completely true, man. It's like entering the best way I can put it, it's like entering an elephant into a deer competition.
Sure.
And all the other deer are jumping and they're doing all these wonderful deer tricks that they have. And you got your white tails and you got all these kind of wonderful deer, spotted deer, whatever you want to have. And then you enter an elephant into it and the elephant wins. And everyone's like looking around like, is that legal? I don't know what just happened here. He has feet. I don't know. He has a tail. What is happening right now? And so everyone's like, I feel like the elephant that fooled everyone that there was a deer there. So It's okay.
It is actually my goal to get Ted to cosplay as something.
Me too.
It's not really up his alley.
It's in fact not up any alley, even in the city in which I inhabit.
I think personally, I think he would pull off a really good Wilson Fisk cosplay.
Oh, dude, do Wilson. Do Wilson.
No.
Well, listen. Here's the reason you should do Wilson. And just for this reason alone. If you're not at an anime convention or any kind of convention and you're wearing the costume, it just looks like you are straight balling with an amazing suit.
That is true.
So you walk out of there, you go to dinner, and everyone's like, well, shit, this motherfucker right here is just to the nines dressed.
Right.
And like you go back in the anime convention, people are like, oh, it's Wilson Fisk. That's amazing. And so either way you win. And that's what I like to call a no-lose situation, man.
Yeah, like Steve Harvey wishes that his suits looked as good on him as Wilson Fisk's suits look on him.
Oh my God. Sometimes I worry about Steve Harvey's suits because he has that time machine and he only uses it to go back to the 1970s suits. And it's so weird. I don't know why I brought up Steve Harvey. I'd rather not get on a Steve Harvey tangent. Man, I think Steve Harvey's mustache wouldn't be on a Steve Harvey tangent. Like there's that, like it is that bad right now that you don't, the Family Feud is just literally his family. That's all. Sorry.
He's something else. I don't know. Anyways, so you hosted a panel one year at again, I'm
GMX.
not. Was it GMX?
It was
I want to
Geek
say
Media
I
Expo.
feel like it was maybe the last year of GMX.
It was exactly the last year of GMX. I was the thing that killed it.
The Geek Media Expo.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. R.I.P.
It's still considered one of the best conventions that happened, and
yes,
it was.
I love MTech with all my heart,
So
but
good.
GMX, it was a true celebration of all geekdoms and fandoms, and
It was like the secret party everyone went to. It was,
Right.
If MTech was the person that you bring home to mom and you show off to all your friends and you're like, hey, I really love this person. Geek Media Expo was the girl that meets you at the club at 2 a.m. and she's like, hey, you want to do some drugs? And you're like, yeah.
why aren't we doing the drugs right now?
Or she's like, I already have been. And that's GMX. That's what GMX was.
Right. So what made you decide to do that panel? Were you just like, a super fan of Kevin Smith and his movies?
Okay. So in doing the cosplay and other than that, the reason I even had a Silent Bob costume in the beginning when it was a Halloween costume was because I've always been a super fan of Kevin Smith.
Sure.
The man has a way of taking a scene that is completely static. The camera does not move at all. And he can tell such a great story that you feel like you're just watching your friends talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a hard thing to capture. His ability to write these scenes that are both so out of this world and yet so relatable is really hard. A lot of people like to call him a one-hit wonder due to Clerks.
Sure.
But the man has made, I think, 42 films now. Like is
it really that many?
I mean, he's made a lot of films. He's
like, is that including like little shorts?
Yeah, I think so. Stuff? Yeah, because I mean, on top of the animated movie, on top of Red State and Tusk and Yoga Hosers and Cop Out and let's not bring up Cop Out. And on top of
I don't think anyone brings up Cop Out.
Oh, dude.
Except Kevin Smith.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has to.
He'll bring it up to make fun of it.
He has two movies that he likes to make fun of, and that's Cop Out because of Bruce Willis, and that's Tusk. And those are the two most hated movies he's ever had. And this is a man that made Jersey Girl. So
yeah, and I don't understand.
on purpose.
I don't understand why it's Tusk and not Yoga Hosers.
Right? I mean, I
love Tusk, and Yoga Hosers, like, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it.
I think I'll answer that one by saying this. I don't think that many people know that Yoga Hosers exist.
I will agree with you on
because
that.
That's
his daughter.
Well, yeah. He was very much adamant about that. His daughter, Johnny Depp's daughter, they're best friends, and so he was like, "I'll make a movie about you guys," because I feel like he reached a point now in his career where he's like doing his victory laps. Sure. I mean, he's done a lot of TV. He's worked on Flash and Supergirl and everything else. He did Arrow, and he's done a bunch of really good. He does a lot of TV shows now. He did an episode of The Goldbergs, and he's done so many other things. And so the movies that he was making, especially the really low budget ones like Yoga Hosers and Tusk, he was legitimately just going, I think we can make a movie about like a walrus.
Oh no, he came up with like a very, very rough script, and then he pitched it to what's his name, Brian? On Smodcast.
Yes.
And I've listened to that episode. I don't think I've ever listened to a podcast episode more than once because you listen to it once but like anytime I need a good laugh, I listen to that episode where he pitches the idea and they like kind of walk through the scripts like they do a live, like almost like a table read. I just die laughing every time.
The second time I went to see him live, he was talking about that. He was talking about how people kept coming up to him and talking about the fucking Walrus movie. And he was like, and people would give him money and eat for it. And he was like, oh, so we can actually make the Walrus movie? And so he was like, I guess we can make the Walrus movie. So he'd move on to the next step and somebody would say yes. And he would be like, I guess we can continue to make it. And so it just kept going because no one kept, like every time he would find a no, somebody would say yes to it. And so it just kept being made.
Right.
And so it was that, dude, if an avalanche comes down super fast, this was a snowball that kept going.
Right.
And I got to say, I love Tusk too. I really do.
Yeah. I love it. Like movie. It's so weird. I mean, fucking Greg Nicotero knocked it out of the park with that fucking walrus suit. Like
that thing was horrifying and like funny at the same time.
Yeah. The first time I saw it, I was like, I might have been baked out of my mind. I was like, oh God. I was like, why? It's just people pieced together with tusks on it.
The first time I saw it was the same feeling I had in my gut the first time I saw Human Centipede, which was just, why would someone make that?
Just to torment other people. So yeah, you did this panel on Kevin Smith, and we had the opportunity to stop by and we caught a lot of it. We didn't get to see all of it because we headed afterwards, or we had to cut and run to go see Anime Sushi.
You guys saw the best parts of it. I'm going to promise you that.
Yeah, we did. I remember you mentioning that to us, like maybe the next day. Yeah. We saw you and you were like, you guys stuck around for the best parts.
It started super late because the group that was in there didn't let out until a little bit later than it should have.
Right.
And then whenever I was like, okay, they didn't tell me how many people I'm going to have come into the room. They gave me a smaller room because it's my first time. I understand. Sure. And so I was against, I think, like one of the main events at the time. I don't remember which it was, but I was against that. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to have that many people. I don't care. And so I stood outside the door and no one was coming in. And I was like, okay, no one's come in. It's been like 10 minutes. Not a single person has shown up. And so I pulled up on my phone, which I always have really large phones because I have huge hands.
Makes sense.
I pulled up on the phone the picture from the front of the Quickie Mart, which was just sure you were open. Mm-hmm. And I just held it up while Justice got the ball out in front of it. And still people weren't walking in. And I was like, I guess no one wants to come to this thing. And then you guys showed up and I was like, thank God someone's here. This was just going to be the saddest thing of a man dressed like Silent Bob in a room by himself at a convention, just like waiting to present. I was like, I could show you a picture of this right now and Kevin Smith will make 2 movies off of it. So
yeah, I was about to say, like, I remember standing there or being in the room and I remember other people being in there. Like,
they came in right before you guys did. And it was, I think one of them was like, he's like, I'm drunk, so I'm just going to sit here for a while. I was like, understood, man. Go ahead.
You gotta respect the candor there.
Right. I mean,
yeah, I was like, dude, yeah, you were honest at least.
Yeah. That's what drunk people are typically good for, is giving you the hard, honest truth, whether you like it or not.
But yeah, I wanted to put that on because I felt that if it was a geek media expo, I didn't have to be just anime or just comics or anything. And I feel that there are a lot of geeks that love Kevin Smith stuff because I mean he started off talking about Star Wars jokes, dick jokes, and like comic book jokes.
Right.
I mean,
what else do you need?
Yeah, and so I was like, well, if anything's geek media, it would definitely be Kevin Smith, and so that's why I put it together, and I really wanted to share that because my very first time ever meeting Kevin was super mind blowing, and I loved it, and it was like a religious experiment, not experiment, but experience, a religious experiment. Cut the boy open, put the crucifix inside, let's see what happens. So he's burning.
I'm going to throw holy water on you to see what happens.
The Princess Master. You ruined it. What's so precious?
Oh man, Golem. I bet somebody out there put a religion about Golem. You know that somebody had to. And they're like, I only worship Smeagol. Death to the Smeagol's, only Golem.
I hope not.
Oh, dude, you know it. And they're like, every night they have their one ring that they just twist in. They're like, one ring to them all. And that's their bedtime prayers. Golem, watch over us in the darkness.
I think we just described Ted.
Oh, nice, Ted.
Are you guys trying to do a Clerks 2 segue or like some weird Lord of the Rings circle jerk? I'm confused.
Oh, isn't all of them a circle jerk? Like, that's the whole point. That is the true round ring to roll them all.
And one ring to bind.
I gotta be honest, I'm not that up on Lord of the Rings lore, but that doesn't sound right.
See, at least you admitted you're not up on the lore. I mean,
so it's not about onion rings?
Wait a second. Hold up. Are you telling me that they walked this entire goddamn movie and not one person gets off? Sorry.
I mean, I find that hard to believe.
I don't know.
So you did the risque cosplay. You did this awesome panel, which I loved. Like I said, I wish we could have stayed for the whole thing.
Oh, thank you. No, that was amazing.
All the knowledge that you laid out, like his the things you knew about meeting him firsthand, the trivial knowledge you knew about him and his movies. It was very well presented in a very Kevin Smith like fashion. Also, so it was almost
probably
like
the biggest compliment anyone's given me all week. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was almost like you were in character, like delivering these little pieces of knowledge. And so it was, to date, it's probably one of my favorite panels that I've ever been to.
I mean, we're talking about a Jersey boy that had no true idea of what he was going to do. His dad was a mail carrier,
right? And
I mean, he had nothing. He loved comedy. He grew up on the greats, and at that point he had no idea what he was going to do. He was working in a convenience store, and so he was like, I think because he was like a huge movie buff, and he would go and watch movies in New York with his best friend, and he would be like, I think we need to make a movie about stuff that we like. And so he went to film school, and he went for a semester, and then he was like, they're not teaching me anything I don't know. And so he dropped out of film school.
Yeah.
And then he went and maxed out 12 credit cards.
Yeah. All to make Clerks, right?
All to make Clerks. And he maxed out 12 credit cards just to follow his dream. He shot it whenever the store was closed at night. And he had to put it all back together, and he had to work then during the mornings.
Right.
And then he would come back and shoot more at night. And he shot it over 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. And didn't he like a lot of the times like sleep in the back?
Oh yeah.
Like, for like a couple hours.
He would grab a nap, and then he would get up and work. And that's just how it worked. And he was really, I think the idea of tossing not only your financial ability right now, but your true future of your financials, to toss them all at this, and to toss all your sleep and your energy into something. And then you have to remember when it first was done, he had used stage actors and people that he knew from the community,
right,
in these films. And so these were nobodies. There was not a single one of them that was known to anybody at the time,
right.
And so this was truly a movie for him and his friends. And so whenever it was done, he was just like, cool, I want to go watch it. I want to look at it. And he shopped it around a bit. No one really seemed interested. And so the movie theater that he would he would go and watch movies that offered to show it once. Mm-hmm. And so he got everyone together that he loved, all the people in it. They brought their families, and he was like, at least I can say that I watched myself on a big screen once.
Right.
And he figured that was going to be it. He was going to have to pay down the debt the rest of his life, grab a job somewhere. Well, other than his friends and family and the actors' friends and families that were there, it was one other person, and it was the talent scout from Miramax.
Yeah.
And he saw it, and he took it back, and he was like, you guys got to see this movie. And so he requested a reel of it, and he took it back to Miramax with him. And there was a person who was horrible right now. Well, I mean, I guess he's always been horrible.
Yeah.
But at the time, Miramax was owned by a very horrible human being.
Mm-hmm.
A real piece of shit kind of character.
Yeah.
And that real piece of shit kind of character hated it. He hated Clerks. He got like, I think he said like 14 minutes into it, and he walked out. And so he didn't want anything to do with it. So that dream was done. And Kevin Smith, people kept telling me he needed to put it in for Sundance. The very first showing of Sundance, they had it set for one showing of it on one theater out of the 3 theaters that we were showing on at that time. Mm-hmm. By the last day of Sundance, they were showing it on all 3 theaters 6 times.
Wow.
It won Sundance hands down. It was a smash hit. At the final showing of it, the head of that company, whose name I will not even gratify anyone with at the time, was there, and he was about to get up, and the talent scout actually made him step down, and he waited. And when it got to 37 times, the blowjob scene, 37 dicks, he was like, he started laughing, and so he offered them $3 million for it. So on an initial investment of $112,000 that they shot Clerks for, he made $3 million off of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the very next movie that they had him under contract for was Mallrats. And with Mallrats, they actually gave him $3 million off the bat and said, make Mallrats. And he was like, well, I can do it for less. I can do it for cheaper. And they kept telling him, you have to spend this money, and you have to, and every time he would go into them with something, they were like, you got to change this or you got to change that. And so finally he just ended up making the movie they wanted him to make.
Right.
And it was a flop at the shows. People didn't go line up to see Mallrats. It was considered a box office failure, and then it became a cult classic. And so for the third one, Chasing Amy, he decided he was going to go again and make what he wanted to make with mostly his own money. Right. And so he went off and made Chasing Amy, which still to this day is considered maybe his best piece of work ever as a true film critic.
Coincidentally, I think that's the only movie I haven't seen.
You should. I'll let you borrow it. I have it.
Okay, cool.
Because I have everything he owns. Everything the man makes, I buy.
Yeah, movie trade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're getting to borrow Once Upon a Time. And,
two dialogue greats at that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I've only heard good things about Chasing Amy.
Chasing Amy. Okay, at the time, Chasing Amy was probably one of the coolest looks into the world of. Do you know the plot behind it?
Wait, I might be thinking of the wrong movie. Chasing Amy is that with
Ben Affleck?
Okay. What's the plot of Chasing Amy? Because I might be thinking of. Oh, I'm thinking of Jersey Girl. Shit.
Oh, you've never seen Jersey Girl?
Yeah, Jersey Girl.
No, Jersey Girl. You don't have to see.
So yeah, I have seen Chasing Amy. It was only once, and it was a couple years ago.
Yeah. Chasing Amy is definitely nowadays it's a little bit different because you got to remember when this came out, it was the 90s, and so people had different views on sexuality and everything,
right?
And but at the same time, it was a very big thing to have really extremely homosexual and heterosexual couples being both the stars of the show at the same time.
Right.
And so it was really nice. And I love it. I love Chasing Amy. It's always going to be that movie for me that I watch and then probably eat a tub of ice cream after when I'm crying like a little bitch.
It's pretty emotional.
Oh, it's extremely emotional. There's
what's her name? The actress in it?
Joey Lauren Adams.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome, and she has like 15 crying scenes in, and she like brings it every time.
Oh yeah, no, she's fantastic, and they got her into that. He wanted to work with her more because at the time they were actually dating. Joey Lauren Adams and Kevin Smith, and he met her on Mallrats, I want to say.
Okay.
And where she had her infamous boob flash scene.
All right.
Which I think my very first copy of Mallrats broke. I don't remember why, but it was a VHS. So
Well, yeah, it's VHS.
Yeah,
so
it's VHS.
They're not meant to be.
It's split in a weird spot.
Durable.
But there's just
what David's not getting is that he's trying to make a joke that he rewound it and watched that a lot.
Oh, God damn it!
Yeah, thank you, David. Welcome to the fucking podcast.
It's late, and I am. There's no excuses. I have my head up my ass.
No, man. No.
I see. I had this feeling that you were like trying to make a joke, and I just didn't fucking get it. And I was like,
that's a feeling you have a lot, I'm sure.
It's okay.
You know what,
I
Ted?
actually get that feeling from people a bunch where I can tell I'm trying to make a joke and they're not getting it. I'm just like, I wonder how far I can push this before they finally catches on. And it's a little game I like to play called My Life. And so it's very much, it's just how it goes. I'm surprised with all talking about risque and everything. You haven't brought up Geek Slam.
I do have that in my notes, and we were definitely getting there.
So sorry.
Yeah, no, So
I fast forwarded a bit. I'm so sorry.
No,
How
it's
dare
all good.
You ruin the obviously planned flow of this podcast.
I know. It's like when you put the flow chart in front of me and you were like, around this point, you're going to make a dick joke about watching Joey Lauren Adams and masturbating. You're going to make that right here. And then about 2 hours later, that's when we're going to get to Geek Slam. And so you need to make sure that you go into Iron Man next. And I'm like, why Iron Man? And you're like, you know why. It's a helmet head joke. Sorry.
If you haven't picked this up already, I'm a little slow.
You're
the
not
town
slow.
is back that way.
Sorry about my friend.
He's a little slow. The town is back.
The town is about that way. About 45 minutes, and you're going to meet some great people.
Fuck that movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Geek Slam. This was an event that was held at GMX. It's only been at GMX. They've tried to revive it at MTAC
and at KaiCon.
Yeah, they did it once for a KaiCon,
once,
right?
Yeah.
I wasn't able to attend. I did see the live video, the Facebook live stream that they did of it, and I could definitely tell that it didn't have a huge turnout like it did whenever it was held at GMX.
Yeah, with we did it also once at, I can't remember the name of the convention. It was this small convention that does like,
was it Hypericon?
Hypericon, that's it. We did it once there as well.
That's where Julian knows you from.
Yeah.
My guest from the previous episode.
Cool. Well, let me backtrack real quick and say one thing about Dumb and Dumber, because I have
Of
to.
course.
You made the Dumb and Dumber quote, and I have to say it.
Yeah.
A good buddy of mine, when we were about 21, 22, a good buddy of mine and we hung out like every single day because we were, when you're at that age and you have nothing other to do.
Right.
And so we did is we would get drunk and we would smoke weed and everything else. And so one day we were watching Dumb and Dumber and I was like, man, I could watch this movie forever. And he goes, oh yeah, me too. And I was like, which one of us do you think would get bored of this movie faster? And he was like, oh, I would never get bored of this movie. And I was like, me either. And so legitimately we put Dumb and Dumber on the DVD of Dumb and Dumber in the DVD player.
Uh-huh.
And we had it on repeat. And we went to see who would be the first one to turn it off. And I was over at his house so much, it was like I was living there.
Uh-huh.
And so legitimately, I would go to his house after work. I'd take a nap there. I'd wake up. I'd go back to work. I'd shower there, everything. And so we had it inside that DVD player constantly on repeat for 2 weeks. 2 full consecutive weeks of repeating Dumb and Dumber at all times, going in and out, just doing about our lives as Dumb and Dumber played in the background.
Right. Before
the first one of us looked at the other one and goes, you want to watch something else? And he looked at me because we were sitting there and I was like, and he goes, say it. And I was like, I don't want to say it, man. And he goes, look, we'll say it at the same time. So it's neither one of us. And I was like, okay, same time. And he goes, 1, 2, 3, something else. And I was like, yeah, that works. He goes, okay, 1, 2, 3, something else. And so we both said it and we're like, okay, cool. We're neither one of us are the loser. We made it 2 weeks on nothing but Dumb and Dumber straight. And so I know that movie so well now.
Sir, I'd like to say that's something to be proud of, but
it's not. No, I have no pride in my work.
Hey, I mean, you should not take anything that I say seriously because my best quality and most admirable, quote unquote, quality is being able to quote movies. And that's not an admirable quality. Like, no one should like pat themselves on the back for that. Like, I mean, I have nothing fucking original to say ever. Like, it's just quoting movies 100% of the time.
Oh, I'm that way with music. Oh, I'm horrible with that. My oldest two children, my stepkids, my two oldest ones I love very much. They have gotten to the point where they know that I'm quoting music. And they don't know what the song is, but they'll be like, oh God, he's doing it again. And it's just at all times, because I remember like it happens so much that I can't pinpoint one, but just today even I've quoted Too Legit to Quit, and I've done Sexual Healing. And I mean, I've gone through the entire gambit, and it's gotten to the point now where my wife is just like used to it. And so whenever I talk in lyrics, she's just like, oh, okay, again, okay. So it just happens.
Yeah, typically like I'll crack either like dad jokes or quote movies or whatever, and Ted will just be like, why the fuck am I friends with you?
Oh, no, I understand. Hi, Ted.
That's pretty accurate, right, buddy?
Yeah, I got to be honest, I checked out again.
That's fine. Okay, so back to Geek Slam. So Geek Slam, the way it worked is the very first time I heard about it, I saw the schedule for GMX and it said Geek Slam on it. And I think it was my first GMX I ever went to. Mm-hmm. So the first time I saw it, I remember going into my brain was like, okay, so what is this? And so I looked it up on YouTube and there were videos of it. And because my first thought was it's a rap battle. And I was like, oh, it's a rap battle? Oh, I'm going to do this. There is no way I'm not doing this. And then I was like, well, first of all, two things. One, you can't rap. And I was like, well, that's going to put a little bit of a damper on it. And two, it's probably not a rap battle. And so that's when I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's insults, and it's literally like Def Jam insults against each other and roasting each other for a competition. In cosplay. You have to be that character. And so I was like, oh, that's the interesting part. You got to be that character. I'm in. And so I was like, how am I going to do this to Silent Bob? Because Silent Bob at the time he was still going through his arc of risque cosplay. And so I was like, he's in that arc. What if he joins this one too? Right. And I was like, this is his side story. And so
it's the B plot.
It's the B plot. And so I was like, okay. So I signed up for it, not knowing how I was going to do it, but knowing that no one had heard me talk at conventions yet, really. And I was like, okay. And so I had an idea. And what had happened is whenever it came time, they had put up the bracket, and I didn't know who I was up against yet, but I pulled this dude from the audience, and I forget, I hate to say this, I forget his name because the dude's fantastic, but he was in a Sonic the Hedgehog cosplay at the time. Okay. And he had long blonde hair, and I was like, you're going to be my Jay, and you're going to scream, just fucking go out there, fat ass, and do it. And I was going to have him scream that from off stage and push me onto the stage. And just because the one way that Silent Bob can talk is when he gets angry. Right. And so I was like, deal. I'm going to go in as Angry Bob every single fucking time. And so it turns out they put me against last year's champ. And they, at the time, who is a fantastic, he was cosplaying Joker, and he was insane. He's a member of Nashville Improv, and he's I'm going to blink on his name, and I'm going to hate myself later because he's just such a good guy. Yeah, I might know who you're talking about. Yeah, and so at the time I'd never met him before, and so he was cosplaying Joker. He had won the year before. He had beat Data. And so right, that was which Joker was he cosplaying as? Do you remember? I think he was cosplaying like Jack Nicholson Joker, maybe. Okay. And so he ended up coming against me, and he had his goons behind him, and they were all in cosplay. And here I come out as Silent Bob onto stage. Round one, my very first Geek Slam, they put me against the reigning champ, and I was like, oh, so it's gonna be like this. And people who know me usually call me a big teddy bear. But my friends used to call me the silent hitter, because the way that would work is I don't burn people often, but when I do, it's deadly. Sure. It is bad. And so I was like, okay, I went out there, and so I'm waiting. And so they were like, who goes first? Terry was like, who goes first? It was Terry and Kirk doing the stuff. Right. It was Terry and Jesse doing the stuff. Kirk was Data, but he wasn't in it that year, I don't think. Yeah. And so Jesse, he's the referee. No, it was Data. He was Data at the time. Yeah, he was Data because he went in as Data. And so just edit all that out. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
And so what ended up happening is they put me against him, and he wanted me to go first. And so I mimed him blowing me because I was Silent Bob.
Right.
And afterwards he goes, one of the best jokes I've ever heard in my goddamn life. He goes, "For the hearing impaired, Mr. Kevin Smith, everyone." And I was like, and he was like, "Let me tell you something, Tubby." He's like, "You see what those people, though?" He goes, "You see what those are? That's my muscle. They do what I want, say what I want. What exactly do you do, Bob?" And that's when I threw down my fake cigarette and yelled out, "Harley." And it was just, the room exploded. It was like a localized earthquake at the time. And that moment that rush hit me, I was like, "Oh, this is like burlesque, but I get to actually be me." And I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic." And he came back really quickly, and it was just a blow for blow. It's still up on YouTube, I believe, and it's called Silent Bob versus the Joker.
Okay.
And there are 2 or 3 different versions from people's cameras, but there's one that's from the official site, and it's fantastic. But I ended up taking him down, and I beat him first round with my Geek Slam, my original Geek Slam. I beat the reigning champ.
Okay.
And my very next match, though, was against Data, who is Kirk. And for all those out there who don't know, Kirk as Data, and
he's
even
very
Kirk not as Data, is our good friend. You know Kirk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, our good friend Kirk is one of the funniest human beings I have ever met in my life. The man is really funny, and he's quick wit, and I don't think there's a moment like I have to be on my toes when I'm around him. And I never watched. I know I'm about to get a bunch of flack for this. I never watched a lot of Star Trek growing up.
Oh yeah, I didn't either. I'm getting into it now.
Yeah, and so I knew nothing about Data. So before I went out on stage, like against him, I Googled Data and just like read a few bullet points.
Sure.
And that was it.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, that's all I've got against him. I have no idea what to do. And so when I went out there, it was just a slaughter because this man knows his Kevin Smith and he knows his stuff, and he just tore me apart.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, okay, I lost. And then he went on to win. And I was like, I lost to the greatest. I don't mind. That's that. I beat the reigning champ, lost to the one that was reigning champ before him. I'm okay. And I kept doing that. And then I lost to our bud. The next year, I think it was, I lost to Sketch.
Okay.
Our good buddy Sketch, who used to,
he's not a big deal at all.
No, not a big deal at all. You know, at the time head animator for Squidbillies. I mean,
right.
Probably one of the funniest dudes with one of the most soothing voices on earth. And he's just such a nice guy, and he's just such a good guy.
Yeah, but he's a good dude.
He was doing Sherlock at the time, I think.
Right.
And I lost to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay. And so I was starting to see a trend where I do really good at my first thing I ever do, and then I do really bad the rest of the time.
Right.
Because at the time I still had one risque. And so it's like, okay, my first go around, I have beginner's luck like a motherfucker, but everything else sucks.
Right. But then you won.
I did.
Year, right. And wasn't it against Andrew?
It was actually,
or am I remembering incorrectly?
No, you're actually right. Before that, when we did it at Hypericon, I was there, and it came about where Sketch actually showed up. And he was going to be at the convention, but he didn't know if he'd have time because he was running a panel at the same time. And so he actually came into the room as Sherlock, and he actually went out. We went against each other, and I beat him. And so I got the championship belt back. But Sketch had previously lost to Andrew.
That's right.
Yeah, Sketch had previously lost to Andrew
as Mark Hamill's Joker.
As Mark Hamill's Joker, and so it was now me as the runner-up against Andrew's Joker. Mm-hmm. Which, mind the way, Andrew's Joker is fantastic.
Yeah, Andrew is he's pretty good at acting. He like you, he has some theater experience.
Yeah,
but his voice acting skills are off the fucking charts.
Insane.
Yeah.
The only downside for him is that I've been a lifelong Batman fan since I was little.
Right.
I have a Nightwing insignia tattooed on my right arm. I named my son nothing but Batman puns.
Right.
His name
that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean his name is his first and middle name is Grayson Thomas. Grayson from Dick Grayson, Thomas from Thomas Wayne. and his first and last initial are GP for Gotham Police, and Grayson means rich son in original Old English, and rich son, the rich son of Gotham, is Batman. Like he is legitimately Batman names.
And if there's anyone that can appreciate all that in this room aside from me, it's also Ted, because Ted is a pretty big Batman.
Oh, I can hear it. He's the Dark Knight over there. He's the quietest one in the room, and it's beautiful.
He's the Silent Knight.
Yeah, guys, I'm not in the room, and also I again checked out. So
yeah, but you're with us in spirit.
It's okay, man. I have a habit of rambling. I do apologize.
Your ghost is here. Here is a ghost. Nope. Okay.
And so whenever it came down at, I want to say it was KaiCon, and it came down between Andrew and me. Andrew and I know each other well enough to know that we are both heavy hitters when it goes down like that.
Right.
And so we were just trading talks and everything the entire time. And whenever it came down, pretty great was at a KaiCon, we were just scoping out the competition because we really saw each other as the only two people that could take out each other.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at all these people that would come up. There was a Mario and Luigi that the Mario was not prepared at all. He had never heard of Geek Slam before, but he wanted to jump in. And he was convinced by the Luigi, and the Luigi was about 10 times drunk. So,
wow, what a winning combination.
It was pretty bad. And there's a rule in Geek Slam, at least at the time, that if the person against you can get 3 slams off with good pauses before you can retaliate, like they give you time to retaliate and you don't, or you can't, and then you get 3 off on you, it's considered a TKO.
Okay.
And so whenever it was me against Luigi, I TKO'd him the first 3 jokes in. He dropped the mic. Like, he legitimately dropped the mic and walked off. And I remember my very first question was like, "You just going to stand there being silent and green?" That's kind of my thing. And like the next one was like, "What's it like to only be in existence because they needed a player 2?" And like it was bad. I was just continuing on him. And so when it came down finally to me and Andrew for Joker, I was like, okay, I know that he's smart and he's got this and he's good, but I know that I have a history of beating Jokers. So I can take him out if I get to him. And so I beat everyone else in the bracket, and I got to him, and it was me with the title championship that they had built just for Hypericon with my belt against him for the heavyweight belt for Geek Slam. By the way, for everyone out there, Geek Slam is set up like a wrestling thing. So you have intro music, you have your fans, you have your chants and everything. And so,
yeah, it was pretty much like at the height of GMX at its crescendo. It was pretty much like, quote unquote, no pun intended, I guess, the main event.
It was the main event
of GMX. Yeah, like it was on Saturday night, kind of like how risque cosplay is.
Yeah, it was the showstopper. It was the gobstopper, because that thing would last for months. It was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big to do. Geek Slam was a lot of fun, and like I would always get nervous, like especially the first time I went and attended Geek Slam. I'd get nervous because I kind of get uncomfortable when insults are being thrown. Like I know it's all for fun, but like.
That's what made it easy for me, because Geek Slam rules state that you cannot make fun of the person in the cosplay. You have to make fun of the character they're cosplaying.
Right.
And so I was like, as long as I'm attacking the character you're cosplaying and not the person, I'm good.
Right.
And the worst thing that anyone can throw at Kevin Smith at the time was that he was fat.
Right.
Either that, or that he was lazy, or he smoked weed, or made horrible movies. I can handle all of those, because I also have made horrible things, and I've also smoked weed, and I also was fat.
Right.
I mean, I still am, but I was then. So, so at the same time,
it's like Mitch Hedberg's old joke. Like,
yeah,
I used to do
Mitch
drugs.
Hedberg's.
I still do, but I used to too.
Don't have a girlfriend. I just know a girl that would be very angry if she heard me say that. That's exactly how it goes. And so I've been hearing those jokes my entire life. I can handle those. And so there was nothing anyone could throw at me that would throw me off. And when it came down to us two, it was a slug out, but I ended up winning and I got the belts. And after that, they haven't had a Geek Slam since.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was the death bell for that. And so I killed not only GMX when I did a Silent Bob panel that only very few people went to. I also ended up killing Geek Slam itself, I feel like, because I was the final bout. And then Silent Bob had his moment where he was in the sun with the heavyweight championship belt, and then the movie's over. And so I have I have a weird aspect about that, to where one of these days MTech's just going to be like, that's it. And I'm going to be like, I just did like a panel the day before or something. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah. It's gotta be kind of a weird feeling to be the final winner.
Oh yeah. No, the only reason I came on this podcast is because I really wanted to end it. So it was just, I was like, well, what do I do? Because people keep sending me these lists telling me to stop them. So I guess I'll just go on. It's fantastic.
Hey everyone, it's David from the Geek Garage podcast. I just wanted to take a quick second to tell you about our new partnership with Everyday Superhero Training. They are a gym in Nashville, Tennessee that you should definitely check out. The gym is ran by Julian and Lydia, who make up the Everyday Superhero Training team. And what Everyday Superhero Training is a nerd-centric, holistic, personal training and group fitness wellness program taught through the modalities of RPGs, video games, comic books, superheroes, and pop culture nerdiness. Just a few things that they have to offer is a free digital magazine that covers everything that they nerd out about, and it is delivered straight to your email inbox. They have a soon-to-be-famous Mission Quest fitness RPG, Nerd Skills, which is a class that uses specific training tactics to help you improve at activities you already enjoy, superhero tinted group classes, personal training integrated into every level of membership, a supportive and positive environment that wants to hear more about your current D&D campaign or show that you're currently binging, and then how much you can bench. So please support Julian and Lydia by visiting everydaysuperherotraining.com for more info on this amazing gym. Thank you. Let's you want to get into some of Smith's actual movies?
Yeah, let's do it. If we're going to start with Clerks, you said.
My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks in a row?
In a row? Which is the best line ever, because
it gets me every time.
Well, it's that moment we've all been in a relationship where you don't want to know the answer, but you're stupid enough to ask.
Right.
And you're like, okay, so at some point all of us have been like, so how many? And it's never ended up the way we wanted it to end up.
Right.
Because either she tells you, either the person tells you a low number and you don't believe them, or they tell you a high number and you're afraid of believing them. And so it's not information you want to know. I think Kevin Smith said it best in Chasing Amy during the diner scene. It's not the I want to know, it's the kind of I need to know situation.
Right.
Where the person was like, okay. And so he was like, how many dicks have you sucked? And he put it out there because the character of Dante was just that kind of person. He was self-involved and he thought mostly about himself. I mean, his main line from the entire movie is, I'm not even supposed to be here today. So he's not thinking about the crazy shit that's happening around him. He's just thinking, I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And so he was definitely that question of how many dicks have you sucked? And so 37 was just such a magical number, because try not to suck any dicks on your way to the parking lot. Hey, you get back here. Which is just the best thing ever.
Ted, is Clerks your favorite?
I would say probably, yeah.
I understand that. It's definitely that feeling, that indie feeling, that underground feeling that really hits home. It's that feeling of, you can tell this was made in 2 weeks by a dude that dropped out of film school, but it's all the right reasons it was made in 2 weeks by a dude that dropped out of film school.
Right. And like reading his book Tough Shit and finding out
good.
Yeah.
So
good. Great book. I finding out exactly why he ended up making it black and white was also a very film school dropout kind of thing. Like, yeah, I'm too good for film school, except I skipped like white balance day.
Yeah.
Like white balance plus like them having to film at night. So they're like, yeah, it's a little bit harder to tell that we're actually filming at night if it's black and white.
I just love that he was like, I want to put myself in it. I'll learn all these lines. And then halfway through, he was like, I'm not going to be able to learn these lines and direct it. I need to be silent for the entire thing. And
right.
It ended up being his most successful character of all time.
Yeah. And because that was the thing, right? Like when he first wrote it, like he wrote himself a bunch of lines. And then he realized
wrote the character of Dante. The character of Dante was originally supposed to be Kevin.
That's right.
And he was because that was his life at the time. He was a convenience store clerk.
Right.
The same one they shot it in.
Yeah.
So he was supposed to be Dante and the main character of the film because it's just that kind of shit that he would do. And then he realized that he was doing so much behind the scenes. He couldn't. I mean, the man was already working like almost 24 hours a day. He was barely napping to get through it.
Right.
And so he couldn't remember all the lines. So he went and made himself Silent Bob because he needed someone for Jay's character to go off of. And he just didn't want him just talking to random people. And yet he wanted Jay in the movie because he thought Jay was the most interesting motherfucker he'd ever met.
Right. And it made sense, and it worked out really well to strike that balance between two characters, one of which talks way too much and one hardly at all.
Well, I think we've all been in that relationship or with friends where we're the quiet one or we're the not quiet.
For sure.
Okay. So jumping from Clerks, do we want to go into Mallrats next? Is that what you want to talk about next?
Sure.
You want to jump into Mallrats?
Also, R.I.P. Stanley.
Oh, yes. Rest in peace, the man, the legend,
Stanley,
who gave us so many wonderful things. And I think that's what really interests me about, because you can tell there's another level to the man, because not only was he around and made so many wonderful things with comics and media, but he was an actual fan of Kevin Smith's work.
Right.
Like that's crazy to me to think of Stan Lee sitting there laughing his ass off about 37 dicks.
Yeah.
Like it's just
right.
And so he was very adamant about being in this last movie, but sadly he passed before they could film it, which is why at the end of it they actually have him talking to Stan Lee about it.
Right.
And so, but they did put Stan's sweater and clothes in there in the scene with Brody. So,
right. Yeah. I saw like that part. I don't want to say
store
shrine, but
yeah, it is. You're right. It's completely right. It is a shrine.
But like, I figured it was like Stan Lee's like sweater and
yeah.
stuff.
It was actually his real sweater, and it was his real sunglasses, and it was real, all the clothes that he used in his, not his scene for Mallrats, because in that he used a really nice suit, but it was a pair of his clothing that was given to Kevin for that purpose.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, in the Marvel community, he's the one above all.
Right.
So I mean, he's kind of the top god at that point. So
yeah,
I don't believe that even in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in the comics, he could even be snapped away. I think that he was one of the ones that remained because Eternity and Time and all of them were snapped away, and Oz was Galactus and all the Titans were snapped. But I believe that Stan Lee was one of the few characters that still remained. So
gotcha. Yeah. So Mallrats, like, I think the joke that sticks out to me the most is Jay doing the whole like sticking his hand in his ass and like
Brody. It's Brody that does it, and he's
shit, palm. That's right. Yeah. Hey, would you like a chocolate covered pretzel?
They're a little melty, but damn, are they exquisite. Yeah, such a good line.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie. I need to rewatch.
I have that as well. To be fair, I have them all. Let's be fair. I will say that no, I don't actually have them all. There is one movie I do not have because you can no longer get it. Dogma.
You can't buy Dogma?
Dogma, the DVD, had stopped being created because the company that made the DVD no longer had the rights to print it. And so the DVD copy of Dogma right now, if you want to get a DVD version of it used, it's like $200, $300.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So quick fun fact. I once upon a time had the dual disc of Dogma, and I am no longer in possession of it.
Oh, yeah, no one is. I once upon a time had a copy of Dogma as well, and I no longer am in possession of it. Somewhere there's someone holding all the Dogmas together.
Yeah, they just like found a way to like collect them all. They were like the Pokemon trainer of Dogma.
But DVDs. With back to Mallrats, that movie, one specific joke off of it literally got Kevin Smith almost to make a Superman movie.
Okay.
And it's the joke where they're talking about, do you think that when Lois Lane and Superman fuck, his cum would just explode out her back like a shotgun? And he was like, he'd have to use a kryptonite condom. And he's like, yeah, but that would kill him, so he'd have to have it lead lined. And so he was like the only person that could withstand Superman's cum shot would be Wonder Woman. And so that entire line there, that entire joke, that dialogue, that actually they pulled Kevin Smith. I think it was Paramount at the time. Might have been Miramax. I don't remember. They pulled him in and they were like, so you know a lot about Superman. And he was like, what do you mean? And they explained that joke back to him. And he's like, oh, from that joke? And they're like, we want you to make a Superman movie. And so he was actually going to be the director and writer of the Superman movie that was supposed to star Nicolas Cage as Superman.
Ted would have loved that movie.
Yeah, wasn't that a Tim Burton thing that he was going to do?
Well, no, Tim Burton got it after Kevin Smith actually gave it up because they kept taking it back to I think the producer or the director, I can't remember who it was, but the head of the entire operation kept reading Kevin's plots, and he was like, cool. He's like, but at some point can he fight a 50-foot spider? And like he was adamant about this. He was like, I need him to fight a
50-foot spider from Superman continuity.
Yeah, and he was like, I need him to fight a 50-foot spider. And Kevin was like, I'm not making him fight a 50-foot spider. It's not just, I'm not going to throw that in there. That's a none of the lore. There's no giant spider anywhere. And he's like, we can call it like a kryptonite spider. And it was like, it's not a spider from Krypton. The planet exploded. There's no Krypton spider out there.
No, it's okay.
And
it's a protective web.
Yeah, exactly. And so he ended up walking away from the project, and he never made the movie with Nicolas Cage's Superman. Otherwise, we would all have it repressed in our memories. But he never did it. But it went to Tim Burton next, and then Tim Burton and Nicolas Cage went a little bit further with it, and then it fell all apart, and no one really wanted to touch it. Well, the head of the operation that was making the Superman movie actually went to a different film and made it next, which ended up becoming Wild Wild West, where at the end of the movie, they fight a giant 50-foot fucking spider.
Oh, my God.
That's a very specific fetish he had.
He wanted more than anything his fucking spider, and he got it. So, yeah, that's actually how the Wild Wild West happened, is because they ended up throwing that in there, because nowhere in the original TV show was there a giant spider. But surprise, in the movie, the main final boss is a giant fucking walking spider.
I really wish that I could forget that I saw that movie.
Oh, man, how can you forget the wonderful lines of Will Smith with Jim West Desperado?
I don't know.
Head trauma and alcohol is how
it's the problem solver of all.
Oh,
really.
Yeah, no, head trauma and alcohol is how I got through childhood.
Yeah, it's like Reese's. It's chocolate and peanut butter.
Oh, man, you got your chocolate. Okay, I know that this probably has nothing to do with the subject, but have you seen
nothing we said has anything to do with any subject?
I'm so sorry. This is going to be the longest podcast ever. I do apologize.
No, it won't be.
But. Okay, I will say that have you seen this thing where supposedly testicles have taste buds?
Oh, yeah, I have seen something about that, like grown men actually dipping their testicles in like soy sauce. Yeah,
it's because apparently soy sauce has the highest concentration of flavor,
right?
And now there are just a bunch of people walking out there with darker than average balls, and so because it stains, the soy sauce
naturally.
But I did see a person who they ended up going for the soy sauce, and they'd gotten their soy sauce from a nice restaurant they had went to for sushi. And so they're like, oh, I'll just use this container for it. And unbeknownst to them, their girlfriend had eaten food, and so she had accidentally mixed the soy sauce and the I'm trying to think of what the word for it is, the green
wasabi.
Yeah, wasabi.
Oh no.
And so he dipped his balls in it, and it was soy sauce and wasabi mixture, and it just started burning. He's like, I don't taste anything, but man, this hurts.
The most effective aspect of that is that somebody mixed wasabi and soy sauce, to be honest.
I know. I was like, man, you're just losing on all accounts there.
For a second, I thought you were going in the direction of he put his testicles in soy sauce, and then some girl accidentally used that soy sauce for like her sushi.
Accidentally? No,
sorry. You mean people don't just do that?
Wait a second. Hold on. Where are we? No.
I'm a pretty open-minded guy, but I'm gonna kink shame the fuck out of you guys for that.
Oh man, I don't yuck anyone's yum. If that's your flavor of the month, you savor that baby. It's fine.
Yeah. Hey, if you're not hurting anyone, who are we to judge?
Oh no, you're hurting everyone by doing this.
the human race has become worse for what you have just said.
Yeah, I am now very pro alien extermination of the human race.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to your stupid rant. Therefore, I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Oh my God. There must be a huge crossover between fans of the early Adam Sandler movies and Kevin Smith's work.
That's like my second goddamn Billy Madison
quote.
Third.
It is your third.
Is it really?
Yeah, because when you first said, because you were like, let's see. No, it is your second, because the first one was Old Bill Shakespeare, which is from the skit.
Yeah, and then I did the looking at me, Swan. Yeah. And then this one.
It is your second.
And you remember back earlier in the podcast when I said I don't have anything original to say ever. I just have movie quotes.
Oh, yeah.
Case in point, this podcast.
You're actually really good. Case in point, this podcast. That comes from Quentin Tarantino's last movie. No.
Oh, my God. No, I said, nothing original.
Sometimes I really like to randomly throw out quotes that people must have said at some point in their life, but no one has proof that they did or did not say.
Right.
Like sometimes I really like to say stuff like, that was the worst shit I've ever taken, George Washington. Like, you don't know that he didn't say it. And like sometimes it's just like, ow, Abraham Lincoln. Like, I don't know that he didn't say words like that.
Abraham Lincoln once said, if you are a racist, I will attack you with the North.
Unlike every brother sister combo in the South, which is, if you are racist, I'll attack you with my South. So I'm sorry, I have broken the host.
Fucking great. Okay, where were we? Kevin Smith.
That's right. We were somewhere around there.
So what's after Mallrats?
After Mallrats comes Chasing Amy.
What did you say?
Regret.
Chasing Amy comes after Mallrats. It was it was Ben Affleck and Joey Lauren Adams. Ben Affleck had been used in Mallrats and as the Predator. I like to call him the Predator because he liked to find emotionally compromised women to have sex with them in what was it, in a uncomfortable position or uncomfortable place. That was how it was put.
Right.
Because originally it was
biographical Ben Affleck character.
Because originally, I know, right?
Nothing to back that up. It
feels right. It feels right. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
It was just he liked to find emotionally compromised women to have sex with them in an uncomfortable place. And the original joke that was supposed to come from that was like the backseat of a Volkswagen. Mm-hmm. Like that was what the original joke was supposed to be. And then like people would be like in a dumpster is what they ended up going with. I think because Volkswagen wouldn't give over the rights to it.
That's right.
And so, but yeah, because it just the anal sex. Sorry, that last line, that girl's only 14. And then when the cops are arresting me, he's like, come on, look at her. You tell me you wouldn't? Like it felt too real, Ben. It felt too real, Ben Affleck. I just called him Ben like I know him on a first name basis. He's going to show up in Dark Knight gear at my house at 4 o'clock in the morning and be like, I know you bleed.
What? Why did you say that name?
What is your mother's name? And I'd be like, Sandra.
So his character in Chasing Amy,
Holden McNeil.
Okay, was that canon to his character in Mallrats?
No, they are two separate characters that are playing. The same with Brody in Mallrats is not the exact same as Jason Lee's character in Chasing Amy. Right. They are two exactly looking people who live two separate lives within his universe.
Right.
Holden McNeil being the head comic writer for Funny Books, as he put him at the time. Mm-hmm. And then the inker was played so wonderfully by Jason Lee.
Right.
And they were two best friends who were butting into the comic book scene and were just starting to get their first big ones with Bluntman and Chronic.
Yeah.
And so they had their first big things with Bluntman and Chronic. And that was the entire story that revolved around it. And if anyone hasn't seen it, I highly recommend it. Go out and find it. You can probably find it for like $5 or something in the Blu-ray thing at Walmart or Target or even online. I mean, I know that most people don't go outside, so It's fine.
I think Chasing Amy is on Netflix, right?
It might be. Oh yeah, definitely go check it out if it's on Netflix. It is highly regarded as one of his best actual filmmaking masterpieces. It's not dick jokes and everything 100% of the time, but they're still there for you. So
right,
it's got an actual story to tell. But I would definitely say Chasing Amy was where I first saw Chasing Amy. I said, oh shit, this dude can actually tell an incredible story and not have me laughing the entire time.
Right.
Funny enough, that scene in the rain, whenever he expresses that he's in love with her, and she's like, you can't just fucking say you love me. I'm a lesbian, motherfucker. Yeah. I was like, that is the best scene ever, because it's definitely has that point of you can't choose who you fall in love with.
Right.
And it may not help with their circumstances or who they are at the time, but he definitely didn't choose to fall in love with her, but he ended up falling in love with her anyway. And I think that really speaks to a lot of us on a level. So it's just, you never choose who you fall for. You can only be hopeful enough that they choose you back. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Really deep there. Like I said, that movie has very little fun. No, it's great.
Yeah. It's,
go ahead.
I was going to say it's definitely one of the most dramatic of his movies,
very
like
much so.
Just period. But up until that point, dick and fart jokes aside, in Clerks, it was still a pretty good, like, dramatic work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially how it was supposed to end in Clerks.
Yeah.
Because Clerks was supposed to be the end of it all. I mean, the original ending to Clerks was literally
dude dies, right?
Yeah, Dante gets shot. Yeah,
Yeah.
after Randall leaves, he's like, I'll lock up. And so he's putting everything away. Robert comes in, shoots him, and that's the end. And what a different world that would have been.
Right. Yeah. So let's see. After Chasing Amy comes Dogma, which was and might still be my favorite out of his filmography.
Dogma is okay. So the one thing I was going to say about Chasing Amy was that there's a line in it where they're talking about fisting when they're on the swings, and he's like, I think who was it? Ben Affleck put a line in there that was like, why don't you just hit her over the fucking head with a baseball bat? And Kevin Smith's very big on, if you're in his movies, you have to follow the script.
Right.
And so he went over to Ben Affleck, who was really not anything big at the time. Like, I mean, this was his earliest works.
Yeah.
And so he didn't really have anything. Kevin was the one putting him in movies at the time. And he's like, no, stick to the fucking script. And he's like, no, I threw that one in there, just a little bit of flair for my fans. He goes, what fans? And so, but he ended up leaving it there anyway. And it's a genius line. But back to Dogma. Dogma was, I think at one point Kevin Smith started making love letters just to people. And Dogma was his love letter to his religion growing up under the Catholic religion.
That makes sense.
Because it was definitely this look at, as you grow older, you start questioning your faith. And that's how you find Bethany, the character in Dogma originally in it. You find her questioning her faith the entire time. And to have her thrown in there as you are the last remaining person of relative of Christ, it puts it on a grand scale. He got Alan Rickman. Fun fact about Dogma, though, Jason Mewes memorized the entire script.
That's right. I remember reading about that.
Yeah, he was told by Kevin, he was like, you can't make all these mistakes, man. Alan Rickman, he's an actual British stage art.
Right.
Yeah. So he came back and he memorized everybody's lines. He memorized the entire script of Dogma.
Yeah, that's nuts. But yeah, Dogma came around, I saw it for the first time probably at the most correct time in my life for seeing this kind of movie. It was right at the pinnacle point in one's life where if you're brought up going to church and you're raised by, the Book of Christ, and I was raised Catholic, I saw this movie for the first time at that moment where I was like, one day it just hit me. I was like, wait, what if this is all bullshit? And then right around that time I saw this movie and I was like, I am not the only one asking myself these questions.
Yeah, my dad was raised Catholic. He went to a Catholic school with nuns and everything.
Yeah.
And he was raised up in New York. So My dad was Catholic. My mom was Southern Baptist. My sister is born again Christian. My grandmother was Pentecostal. And so I was like in a world of differences.
Right.
But I remember first seeing it, and I was like, "This is genius. This is places no one else is willing to go with this subject matter."
Yeah.
But I will say that fun fact about Dogma that at least I think is fun is that Kevin Smith actually joined a protest against his own movie for that. Did you know about that?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
So what happened is that there was a protest of a bunch of Catholics that had posted up around the area of the movie theater that was being shown at in his hometown.
Okay.
And so he went out and he actually joined in with the line, and he was like holding up signs and everything.
That's right. Okay.
And like the camera crew came and they interviewed him, and they were like, "What do you think about this movie?" And he goes, "Well, man, it makes fun of Catholicism, so it can't be good." And he's like, I don't think this is going to be a good movie. And they're like, "What do you say to people who say you look just like the director of this movie?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't even know who the director of this movie is." There's camera footage of him just standing out there at his own, protesting his own movie while all these other people are protesting it. And they're asking a bunch of them, they're like, "Have you seen the movie?" And they're like, "I refuse to see the movie. And here's the actual maker of it right next to you."
Right.
And it was so good. He got death threats for that movie though.
Yeah, that's right.
He said that he, because of that movie, because of Dogma and the blowback from it, he no longer considers himself. He doesn't believe he can be considered Catholic, but at the same time, he still believes in most of the Catholic religion.
Right.
And so it's very big for that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Another big reason why Dogma was big for me was because of George Carlin.
Oh,
like he's up there for me in terms of best comedians of all time.
Rest in peace, George Carlin.
I know.
It's hard to say rest in peace, George Carlin, when George Carlin even said that nothing happens after you die. And he was like a very big proponent of the whole religion is bullshit thing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be like, "You rest in the afterlife, sir." And he's like, "There was no fucking afterlife."
Yeah. And him playing a bishop was just fucking
classic. Role written for him, by the way. And so
he only wanted George Carlin to play that bit, right?
Yeah, he only wanted George Carlin to play it, and he asked George about it. And George had one request, and that was that he could keep his wedding ring on because his wife had just passed.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, if you watch the film very closely, you notice that they never show his left hand because his wedding ring is still on the entire time.
Right.
And so, yeah, they made do, and they made sure not to show it too much. But yeah, his wedding ring was on. And that was his one big request, is that he could keep it. And I mean, George Carlin knocked it out of the fucking park.
Yeah.
He always did about everything, though. He liked working with Kevin, too. That's why he did Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Right.
So
the unwritten rules of the road.
Which, coincidentally, George Carlin's last time on camera, as far as I know, last role was in that scene.
Huh. Ted, do you have any thoughts on Dogma?
I would say that for me, it's probably his second best movie.
Yeah. Agreed. I completely agreed.
I mean, like, what an incredible ensemble cast.
Right?
Like, Chris Rock.
Salma Hayek in that role killed it.
Yeah. Tits don't make a person. Hell, the chubby wearing coat motherfucker's got tits.
Sorry. Dude.
It's a shit demon.
I think one of my favorite things about that Dogma. Oh my god, there's so many good ones. Okay, so first of all, having the two wise men as fucking Jay and Silent Bob. Whenever, because it's a continuation of when they're going to Sherman, Illinois after the events of Chasing Amy. They're grabbing money from Holden and going to Sherman, Illinois. It's one long continuing story.
Yeah,
and so I think that's what really is cool because all these take place in the same universe, but you're following the storyline of Jay and Silent Bob from the very beginning.
Yeah.
They're there and they're at the mall, and then they're grabbing money from Holden in New York. They're going to Sherman, Illinois, which there is no fucking Sherman, Illinois.
Right.
Movies are fucking bullshit.
All these fucking kids actually show up for detention.
Except for Judd Nelson. Sorry.
He's fucking harsh.
That entirety of Dogma is probably one of the greatest casts. And he's used all of them so many times.
Yeah.
The second time that I can think of Salma Hayek coming out and being a stripper as her main role.
Right.
well, the other one was I wonder sometimes. I've never asked him, and I want to ask him at some point next time I meet him, if his inspiration for doing Salma Hayek as the stripper was because of Quentin Tarantino's movie,
right, From Dusk Till Dawn.
From Dusk Till Dawn, and if he was like that was an homage almost to her being a stripper there as well,
right?
Or if everyone just wanted to see Salma Hayek as a stripper. So
why can't it be both?
It's both. It's got to be both.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, it only makes sense.
Dogma definitely had that power about it, and making all of them Alanis Morissette as God is probably one of the greatest choices ever.
Yeah.
I mean, Jagged Little Pill at the time, but
yeah, what a powerhouse of an album.
I know, and I mean, it was just, it's pretty crazy. I mean, one moment you're at the top of your game writing hate songs about Uncle Joey, and the next moment you're God, and then you fell off the face of the earth for the next 12 years. So it's
yes. And she's coming back this year.
Oh yeah.
For the I think it's like the 15th or 20th.
Wait, you're telling me God's coming back? No, sorry.
Not
He's
again.
returning.
I need to go back to church. No, I think it's I can't remember what anniversary it is of Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah,
25.
Right.
Yeah, that
He's on top of this Asian cinema and Alyssa Morissette knowledge. I like this man. This is the Ted I stand for.
Yeah,
Ted 2020.
So let's see. So after Dogma, what was that? Was that Jane Silent Bob Strike Back? Yeah. Like, I mean, what do you do of the quintessential stoner flicks? After
you make a movie where you have these two guys that have been your side story, your B story for the entire time, meet God, what do? You give them their own movie.
Yeah.
And so Jane Silent Bob Strike Back struck out of that. And Jesus. I think that's one of the greatest. I think if you're going for a stoner flicks, yes, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back is right up there with How High. Like, it's just as good for me.
Right.
And Up in Smoke. And like all these other great buddy comedy movies or dare I say it, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So it never said they were stoned, but those two dudes were stoned.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some. When I think of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I think of of course their part in the movie because it's their movie, but like Will Ferrell is one of my favorite parts of that movie.
The park ranger who ended up trying to take over a federal investigation.
Right.
Like
he just I don't want to say he steals the show, but like he's so fucking good in that part. Why are you
shooting at me? Because we're women and we're badass and you're a man. Only on the outside. It's like such a good line.
Right.
It's so underplayed, but it's so good. Oh man.
Yeah. No, that was good.
That and I mean, okay, so clearly I have a lot of Kevin Smith's stuff, but I have a lot of the action figures. And okay, because there are action figure lines, and there are comic books, and there are so many other things that came out of this universe.
Right.
I have the entire setup from Jane Silent Bob Strike Back as for both Jay, Bob, and Suzanne the monkey.
Okay.
Who was an orangutan, so an ape, but they still call her a monkey the entire goddamn movie.
Yeah.
But everyone in that movie performed their fucking hearts out, in my opinion. Like you even have what's his name, Stifler. Sean Scott or no?
Is it
Sean William Scott?
Sean William Scott. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot Williams.
Ted coming in the clutch with that 90s knowledge.
I tell you what, man, Ted is on top of this shit.
Yeah,
like he's like, I checked out, but the second I need him, he's there for me. Ted is like a good Band-Aid. I love him.
He is. He's a good dude.
And so, Sean William Scott, you have him in there with giant braces singing about how he loves all the animals. See you later, goat fucker is still one of the best things. But I will say if Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back gave us anything for a true geek community that is still around to this day and used, it's that I still to this day will call my wife Boo Boo Kitty Fuck. Like, it's just so good. And so Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, they got to go stop their own movie. It just seemed like the most meta thing at the time of, hey, I'm making a movie about Jay and Silent Bob, where they have to go and stop a movie about Jay and Silent Bob, which was perfect.
Right. Perfect. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more meta,
oh God,
Reboot rolls around. Finally, and it gets super meta. We'll get to that.
You want to jump into Clerks 2 next?
Yeah, isn't that next in the lineup?
Next.
Yeah. This is another Kevin Smith movie I haven't seen in a few years, but I like it a lot.
Quick Stop burns down. They got to go start working at a
Movies.
restaurant. How they all got this job at the same restaurant blows my fucking mind.
Right.
Especially with a manager like Rosario Dawson.
I know. With Clerks 2, like since I haven't seen it in a while, I can't really remember anything notable off the top of my head aside from the continuation of which was the better Star Wars movie, except now it's like Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings.
Even the trees walked in that fucking movie. I have to say, man, that's literally a thing though, because at the time Star Wars geeks were having I think they were having like their not heyday because the 90s films had really kind of hurt that a little bit.
Sure.
And then you had 2001 is when Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so why do I know that off the top of my head? But so they ended up,
this was a popular debate back then.
Yeah,
though.
it was really big because the 90s film has come out and it hurt the credibility a little bit of
Star Wars.
And so Lord of the Rings was huge at the time. And so it was definitely a which geek side is bigger,
right?
Literary or movie.
Yeah.
And those were the two big giants at the time. And it really worked to their favor. What do you prefer? You prefer Star Wars or Lord of the Rings? This is a safe space. Only Ted can judge you.
That is highly accurate. It's Star Wars beyond a shadow of a doubt. I fucking love Lord of the Rings, though.
Oh yeah, no, completely honestly, man. I'm more of a Lord of the Rings guy. I got my first set of books. They were a copy of The Hobbit all the way through to Return of the King.
Okay.
They were the 80s set, the set that came out in the
nice.
80s, the paperback's entire set. And I got them from my grandmother who gave them a gift to me, but they were actually my grandfather's when he was in prison. And
wow.
Oh yeah. No, he died before I met him. He died in the 80s. Like he died before I was born.
Okay.
But she gave those to me and I read them from The Hobbit through.
Okay.
And so I read them in what people consider the incorrect order. So there's just
sure.
And so I read it from The Hobbit all the way through, and I was so in love with the storyline that whenever they started making popular stuff like movies off of them, I was losing my mind.
Right.
And I had the Frodo Lives T-shirt, and it was so horrible because I think I have a yearbook picture in my Frodo Lives T-shirt, and they cut off the lives part, and so it's just a picture of me back in grade school with like my horrible bowl haircut and my puka shell necklace with like just around my neck, and I was already chubby at the time, and so just the chubby cheeks, smiling bowl haircut with my Frodo Live shirt that it just says Frodo on it.
Frodo.
And so I looked, oh man, it is a flashback to still to this day warn me.
You might as well just be wearing a shirt that says winner on it.
Oh yeah, man. No, I should have worn a shirt that said wiener on it. I was a walking dick joke, and like not even a normal dick, like a chode. I was a chode joke.
Dude, I got no room to talk. Like my middle school picture was like me with this ridiculous blue shirt on, this ridiculous tie that was the Tasmanian devil with like dollar bills all over it.
Back when Looney Tunes was gangsta, yo.
Yeah, and like I had frosted tips because I wanted to be a member of the Backstreet Boys. And like I wish, holy shit, I wish I was making this up, but unfortunately I'm not. I really wanted to be a part of the Backstreet Boys.
No, that's fine, man. I mean, don't
encourage him.
The only
tell me why
ain't nothing but a heartache. Listen,
tell me why
ain't nothing but a mistake.
Now number 5.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Fuck it.
Yeah, we had to bust into the Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference.
No, the only Backstreet the Backstreet Boys ever knew was anal. It's fine. It's like that's.
All right. So what comes after? What comes after Clerks?
After Clerks 2.
Clerks 2.
After Clerks 2 came a whole slew of movies. You have Cop Out. You have a bunch of his smaller films. I will say, if we're going to make a few stops on this, I would love to say Red State would be one I'd like to make.
Yeah.
Because Red State is probably his... If we're going to talk about the non-Jane Silent Bob, non-View Askew movie set that he has, his universe View Askew, I will happily say that Red State is probably one that stands so well on its own, it's scary.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about what was originally supposed to be the ending of Red State?
So I'll answer that quickly with no. I'll also say that I ashamedly have yet to catch up with Red State.
Don't worry about it, Red State.
And it's not
at any point.
Not because I've steered clear or any other reason. It just for the simple fact that I haven't had the opportunity
that's
to.
Fine. That's perfectly fine.
It comes up in conversation every once in a while, kind of like this. And I'm like, oh yeah, like fuck, I keep on meaning to check it out.
I think the reason a lot of people bring it up whenever they're talking about Kevin Smith's other work is because a lot of his other movies are kind of shit. I love him. No, I love him. I love watching his work, and I love what he does, and it's gorgeous what he does. But a lot of them are comedies, and he has a really good way of putting that in. Red State was, if you took, it's like taking Bozo the Clown and giving him a machete and telling him to hack open this room full of people. Like, it's like just watching the madness go to work.
Right.
I think I like to put it as it was him trying to prove that he can make something that's not funny, but still great.
Sure.
And the ending to Red State, which I'm not going to tell you the true ending because it was supposed to, because you haven't seen it yet, because I'd ruin it for you. I'm so sorry. But I will say that the true ending to Red State was supposed to be the apocalypse.
Okay.
There's you'll get to it at some point, I hope. But he was originally going to make the apocalypse be the true ending of the movie.
Okay.
And he ended up calling a guy, and he was like, well, should I do this ending, the ending that it has now, or the apocalypse? And the guy goes, the guy that made Clerks would make the apocalypse. And he was like, oh, fuck it, I'm making the apocalypse then. And they didn't have enough money to make the apocalypse, so he did it. But it still ended up being a great movie.
Yeah, like I said, I've been meaning to catch up with it. I just, and it always gets recommended to me.
Yeah.
Since I call myself a fan of Kevin Smith.
No, go ahead.
Just because they say, hey, if you're a fan, like, you need to watch this because it is, yes, it's a movie he directed, but it's so unlike the typical comedies.
Wrote and directed. Yeah.
So yeah, I just
I will say that that's one you can watch at any time. It has I've never seen it coincide with any of the other works of his, so it's not like part of the established universe of View Askew, so you're fine there. Cool. It's like watching the Marvel movies and they put out something and you're like, I don't have to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So like it's very much its own thing. If you want to go into the other universe, because he actually has two universes, and the other one was Yoga Hosers and Tusk.
Right.
And Moose Jaws, I believe, is supposed to be coming out. Or Moose Drool, something like that.
I heard about that. Hasn't that been like kind of in the works?
Yeah, it's been in the works for a long time.
Yeah.
But actually, the funny thing is those characters, the Jane Silent Bob from those characters, because they are in the movie. The Jane Silent Bob from Moose Drool or Mace Jaw is actually the Jane Silent Bob from Degrassi.
Okay.
Which were technically the real Jane Silent Bob at the time as well, because Jane Silent Bob did a whole bunch of episodes in Degrassi.
Sure.
If you've never seen them, it goes exactly like you think it would for a Canadian high school to have these two weed dealers nearby. And that's exactly it. That's the premise. That's the genius behind it. That is legitimately them. It's Jane Silent Bob at a Canadian high school. Like, it's pretty good. I will say that Drake and his music video for "I'm Upset" brought them back because they did a giant Degrassi thing.
Sure,
he brought them back, and they're actually in the music video selling weed to the principal.
Really?
In it, and like when the entire in the music video, it all catches on fire, and they're actually there singing with it and everything. So Jane Silent Bob make a cameo in "I'm Upset" as well as Jane Silent Bob.
Right.
It's pretty great.
So I think. Up next, we have you kind of did a soft intro to this series, but Tusk and Yoga Hosers. I totally get why everyone craps on yoga hosers.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Even Kevin Smith himself says that it's not a good movie, but he wanted to make it.
Yeah.
I respect that.
It was a gift for his daughter in more or less words.
Right. And but Tusk, like, I think it's like if him and Tarantino got together to direct a horror movie.
I will completely agree with that aspect.
Like, that's when as I watched it, especially with Michael Parks.
Yes.
Yeah. I knew Parks as the last name, but especially with him being in it, because he's in like every Tarantino movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to take a foot fetish and replace it with a flipper fetish, you got Tusk. Like, that is
right.
It feels like that kind of way. Tusk. I think Tusk came about because he had already done Red State, mm-hmm. and people were like, he made a point to himself. He wanted to do every different type of movie.
Yeah.
And so he had done Red State, which was more of a sociological view and horror kind of film.
Right.
But he wanted to do a true horror kind of film.
Right.
And that's where Tusk was born from, that and getting very high and telling a weird story about a walrus. And so,
yeah, there's really like there's some comedic parts to Tusk,
yeah,
but not any more than like a typical horror movie would have. Like, I mean, there's like the parts where, where what's his name, Justin Long and his co-host, they talk about the couple of people they want to have on the podcast, and there's the whole like situation of him going to the dude's house in, it was Canada, right?
Yes.
He flew to Canada to go meet with the dude that cut his hand off or his arm off or something, and he killed himself. That's granted. I'm not saying it's funny when people kill themselves. No. That particular,
we're all in agreement here that is not hilarious.
Right. But that particular situation had some humor to it.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. There's, I think the true thing is tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Sure.
And that's the old formula for it. And I think it had been enough time because we were nowhere close to that person that it became comedy.
Right. So, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it. But yeah, his whole like ascension into like going from there, be like, well, like I still want to make this trip worth something, and then running into the getting to that bar, getting into the bathroom, reading the note, being like, holy shit, this is the fucking jackpot. And then he gets there, and just like I said, the ascension into, like, it's just a slow build-up, almost a very Tarantino-esque build-up to that's.
It has the same kind of build-up that, like, say, Death Proof has. Not Death Proof. Yeah, Death Proof has.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it there.
So. Right, and so I was like, kind of on the edge of my seat. I was like, it's not particularly super tense, but. Like, I know he gets turned into a fucking walrus.
You don't know what's going to happen next. It's that kind of idea.
Yeah, it was very transparent, like, what the movie was about. Like, he basically stumbles upon this dude. Dude turns him into a walrus. Yeah. And so I knew it was coming, but I was like, what the fuck? And then, like I said, I was, like, blasted out of my mind that night when I watched it for the first time. And, like, the zoom-in shot of him, and he's like, like screaming, like, and he can't fucking talk because I was just like I am horrified and I'm laughing my ass off all at the same time.
Yeah. And to think that the same man who made that amazing piece of cinema was also the same man that made German wiener sausages as evil guys one movie later is just immaculate. That is so good.
Yeah,
I will say that Johnny Depp as the detective.
Yes, as I forget his name. It's something very French Canadian.
Yes, Crusoe.
If only I had a magical box in front of me,
like a magical box that connects all information together.
Guy Lapointe.
Oh, Guy Lapointe. That was it. Okay, yeah. Guy Lapointe. What was I thinking? Crusoe. Oh, yeah. But Guy Lapointe, yeah. Plus, he had a dick on the side of his nose. Oh, did you never realize?
He had a dick on the side of his nose?
The prosthetic that he used for his nose to get into point Johnny Depp called him Kevin Smith into the trailer at one point because Johnny Depp did that for free, by the way.
I think I knew about that.
Yeah, he was like, I have a role that I want you to look into, and he was like, text it to me. And so he literally texted him the entire thing. And Johnny Depp was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so he showed up, and the only thing he requested was that his makeup artist be paid for, because he works with one specific makeup artist.
Sure.
And that was the one thing. He didn't want any money for his role or anything or for his time. He just wanted his makeup artist to be paid for.
That's fair.
And so he calls Kevin into the trailer, and when he's in makeup, and he's just got the nose prosthetic on, and he's like, what do you think? And he turns his head to the side, and Kevin's like, it looks great. And he goes, but does it look enough like one? And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, a dick. Does it look like a dick? And he's like, now that you mention it, does look like a dick. He goes, perfect. And so he's like, can we put like a vein on the side of it? And so like the entire thing is a giant dick on his face for the entire movie.
I guess I never noticed.
Yeah,
it.
It's that way. And because the original character was put there in Yoga Hosers, it's still a dick.
Okay.
So it's a giant dick on Johnny Depp's face the entire time.
Now I have another reason to watch Tusk. It's not another reason to watch Yoga Hosers.
No.
I don't think I ever need to watch that again.
I find joy in Yoga Hosers because if I was just to get like blasted and watch a movie, I can watch Yoga Hosers and I can be like, okay, this is hilarious from the point of view of me being high.
Sure.
But not saying that I do, because I live in a certain state that is not legal. But if I did.
Yes, if you did smoke weed.
Then what I would say is that I can watch that and I can like go and I don't have to worry about anything when I go and make myself a sandwich or get lost on the way to the microwave, or because when I come back, if it's still at a different point in the movie, I'm like, well, I guess this is still happening. So This is nice. The Colleen's, though, pretty hilarious to have those two in it. So
yeah. So he did a bunch of stuff in between Yoga Hosers and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. You alluded to a few of those things. None of them movies. They're all like TV shows.
He did Flash. He worked really behind the scenes on a bunch of episodes of Flash and Supergirl and Arrow, and he's worked on the Goldbergs, and he's done a lot of TV stuff, which is really good because we're having a big renaissance in the past couple of years for nostalgia of the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge thing. I think the teens call it Visco Girls, where it's just like 90s fashion is coming back really crazy wise.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really insane. But I will happily say, as a guy that lived through that period of time, it's not all it's cracked up to be. But he helped out a lot. I think his best episode of any of those is probably the Flash called The Good Dinosaur.
Okay.
And that's where the Flash actually gets to, spoiler alert for anyone that has not seen the Flash, please skip ahead a few seconds until I'm done with this tangent. So
thanks for the spoiler alert.
I'm happy to help. So I think it's in season 2 or 3 of the Flash. Flash goes back in time to try and stop his mom from being murdered, but he gets to actually have a discussion with her about her reading him a book, The Good Dinosaur, as a kid. And it's this touching moment where he actually gets to talk to his mom. And he did that entire episode.
Okay.
And so it was the first time you really get to see that character bond with his mom in the show. So that was my entire takeaway. I love how the episode pacing went, and it was fantastic that way. But yeah, he did a lot of TV work. He wanted to do a lot of TV work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've caught a few episodes here and there of The Flash because Lindsay, she's a big fan of those like CW shows. It's on the CW, right? The
Flash? It was. I think it's still on the CW. I don't know if I remember back when it was still called the WB Network and stuff. So.
You're right, yeah. But yeah, she's a fan of those shows and a huge fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so I've caught a few episodes here and there of all those shows, and Flash is actually pretty good. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to sit down and
that's okay. That's perfectly fine.
Watch the whole thing. But
it's a lot to take in. It's like looking at an entire encyclopedia, and everyone else is on chapter Z, on just number Z, and you're like, oh, I got to start at A right now, and that sucks. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I would recommend it for anyone that likes it. into the spoiler alerts for Splash. Thank you.
That actually brings us to Reboot.
Reboot.
Yeah.
Let's get into this masterpiece of a.
It's yes. Did you see my my Facebook /Instagram /Twitter post?
I did
yesterday?
because I follow you religiously on there due to the fact that you put out such great and wonderful content.
Well, that's your first mistake. That's the self-deprecating humor that Ted and I employ on a regular basis.
Oh no, it's perfectly fine. I mean, the only reason I listen to you guys so much is so that I can cry myself to sleep at night. It's fine. I use the Tears of Face Wash. It's really nice.
I watched it last night. I think it came out yesterday.
Yeah, the 21st of January. Otherwise, it's dating this.
Yes, thank you for that. I didn't mean for that to sound sarcastic. If it did,
Thanks, Jaren. It's okay.
So because I always do that, I always say, yeah, I watched it yesterday, but it's not going to be yesterday when this podcast is released, so it's irrelevant.
Oh, you're never irrelevant. You're just less relevant.
No,
that's a good way. Thanks, Ted. But yeah, so I enjoyed Reboot. I want to watch it again.
Yes,
because I'm sure there's things that I missed because it's so fucking meta and so self-referential.
It starts off going 100 miles an hour in a billion different directions.
Yes, it is. It is a hot mess. It is all over the place, but holy shit, does it come together?
I know, it's so good.
It's here we go. This is what's called a callback. It is poignant.
It is poignant. So good. Oh, I love that you brought up that word.
Yes.
I'm going to have to remind myself in the future when I have a time machine to go back to this exact podcast and use it in the beginning. So
exactly. It will be a very poignant moment in your life.
That's what we call a recall back. No.
Yes. But yeah, like I said, I really liked it.
I will say a couple of things that happened about it. I died when he first lit the Silent Bob joint and was smoking out of the penis.
Yeah.
I fucking died. Because as an Uber driver, a really well one, I have seen
5 stars.
Yeah, thank you. I'll rate you as well. But as an Uber driver, I have gone some really cool people in. But the fact that he didn't automatically catch the smell of marijuana,
right?
I was like, oh shit. And then whenever I saw they were smoking out of Silent Bob's dick, I was like, I want that fucking joint now. It's just...
Yeah, he really should have smelled that before they even lit it.
Talk about smoke and pole. I swear to God.
Yeah.
But yeah, the entire movie is it's genius. And I think that is his final hurrah. That was his biggest, not true final hurrah, but that was his big love letter of, if I can't ever do this shit again, if I can't ever say goodbye to anyone,
right.
This is it. This is to all my fans out there who've been sticking with me since the original Clerks and the View Askew universe. This is my big one for you guys.
Yeah, his whole shift in points of view on a lot of things after his heart attack.
Yeah.
I feel like his material, including his podcast and this movie and just his viewpoints in general, got amplified. It's
the moment we all realize that we're not immortal.
Yeah.
And it's the scariest thing in the world. The morning he had his heart attack, I was asleep, and I remember being asleep because I was there. And so I remember that, and my phone started just going off crazy. And I was like, well, first of all, either someone I care about dearly has died, or I'm about to die, and I don't want to know what's about to happen here. Because if everyone's calling me, something's gone down. And so I just started getting my messages. Have you heard the news? Have you seen everything? I'm like, okay, first of all, someone say what it is.
Right.
And then finally someone was like, Kevin Smith just had a heart attack. And I went, oh shit. Because I hate to say this because it makes me sound horrible, but I already am. My identity, especially during that period of time in my life, and especially with how much I met my wife when I was doing Silent Bob Risque, and with Geek Slam and the friends I made, and the community I made at MTech and all the other cons as Silent Bob myself, that my entire thing was, if I can make one person happy, if I can have one good day where I make someone's con even better because they saw this dude and he didn't break character and he's been good. If I can make one person a happier human being, the better it is. I've done my job.
Right.
And my idol, the dude I've loved for his movies and his comedy and the silent fat ass that never shuts up. Like it's such a love affair, a one-sided love affair for me, that whenever I found he was going to die, it was like everyone who's ever had a David Bowie tattoo the day he died.
Yeah.
Like it hurt. And I was like, okay, well, he's going to die. And small part of me went, well, he's a fucking fat ass that's been around for like, he's been eating cheeseburgers, double fisting it for the past 20 years, and he smokes a ton of weed. I mean, the man hasn't seen a treadmill in 18 days. Like, let's be fair here. That's going to happen. But the other part of me was like, motherfucker, this man's in the prime of his life. He's got a wife and a daughter, and it's just going to hurt. And then when I found out he lived, I was like, I got to get my life together now. And I started working out and eating better. And then I realized that I did not good at that. And I've tried so much, but it's
hard.
I have a problem with willpower. I mean,
same, bro.
I willpower these cheeseburgers down my fucking throat, but it's just, it's like Chris Farley said in Tommy Boy. I used to have this problem with bear claws. I would eat them 2 at a time, and they get stuck right in this area here. And it's so good. I've always had a problem. I cope by eating, and I don't actually eat that much junk food. I retain weight kind of like a water balloon, in the sense that one of these days I'm going to burst, and it's just going to get all over everyone, and then I've ruined somebody's bachelorette party. It's really bad.
We'll just be bathed in little bits and pieces, Jaren.
Little bits and pieces of Jaren.
It's all I've ever wanted out of life.
Somebody's mouth will be open, and somebody can finally eat me for the last time, and this will just. It'll be the greatest moment, and it'll be the true opus. I know. I think that was my entire thing. Is whenever I started off doing Silent Bob, and I realized I was making people happy, and people were looking for me at conventions, and they were running up to me, and they were hugging me, and they're like, "I remember you last time. You made my entire thing so good." And people were sharing pictures of me and talking about me. I was like, okay, this is actually having a positive influence on people's lives.
Oh yeah.
And there are so many people out there not having positive influences on people's lives and making things worse. And so I was like, if this makes people happy, I want to continue doing it and be the best I can at it.
Yeah, it's such a seemingly ordinary, simple idea. And you think, like, how could this possibly have some sort of like positive impact on someone's life? Like just cosplaying as a character and then someone getting a kick out of it. And then they see you the next year in the same cosplay. They come up, they say hi, tell you how much they appreciate it. Like, I mean, you're just like, how can this seemingly ordinary thing like have this kind of an impact?
I've met people that I've met people that have told me that I came into their lives at a weird time, and just being that silent guy that was there, and they would talk to me the entire time, and I would just sit there and listen. I've met people that say that that's really helped them a lot throughout their life. I had one good person that said that the night that I met them was not going to be a good night for them. They were going through a lot of stuff. And they said that me just even being there, even being silent and being there as this character that they recognized really got them through that night, and they're not sure they would be alive otherwise. Like, and that hits you super hard because you're like,
pretty fucking powerful.
Because you're like, that's not okay for me. You're like, I didn't know that it was going on, but I'm really glad I could help. And I'm just a dude that lives in the middle of now not nowhere, but now a city.
Right.
But I came from nowhere with nobody is from anything. And if I can just help one person, I don't even care. Like if it's through my cosplay or if it's through my jokes, if I can make one person's day better when I make them laugh, that is my entire goal.
Yeah, man. I mean,
life is crazy, man.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's awesome that you've been able to be like a listening ear for people. Cause like sometimes that's just what people need. Like people just simply straight up need someone to like listen to them. And
I think you help a lot of people too, whether you know it or not.
No,
maybe.
You and Ted help a lot of people.
I mean,
moms.
We are big with moms.
I guarantee it, man. You got those MILFs on lockdown. It's fine.
I mean, we got a pretty healthy dose of, I guess, that kind of reality check when we went to GalaxyCon, and we talked about this a little bit. Well, I mean, definitely a lot during our GalaxyCon episode where we did a recap.
Yeah,
but it, I don't want to speak for Ted, but like me personally, like being there, like we didn't know what to expect going in. We had no idea because we really hadn't had any experience like going to a convention for an entire 3-day weekend, sitting at a booth, like actually having a booth, sitting there and having people approach us instead of like us having to approach them, just like passing out buttons or whatever. And it was just so incredibly humbling, like just period people coming up to us and like wanting to hear what we had to say. So just that by itself was pretty damn amazing. But then, you know, we talked about like a couple of people coming up to our booth and saying that they've listened to the show, and we don't know who these people are. And that part alone was mind blowing, that finding out, discovering that there's people that we don't know that listen to the show.
People caring about who you are and what you do is a life-changing experience.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts. I definitely did not set out with this podcast to do any of that or expect that it would happen. I don't want to say that I didn't set out to do that. It's a very cool, like consequence, or not consequence, like just a thing that's materialized out of this podcast.
Response to your action.
Sure. Like, yeah, I started the podcast because I just wanted to talk about nerdy and geeky shit with my friends.
Yeah. The reason everyone starts a podcast.
Right. And like, I just, it was something that I was already doing. So why not just throw a microphone and a recording device into the mix?
Yeah, no, that's completely right. You're not wrong there. Yeah.
And so when I started, I never really had an idea or a feeling that it would really go anywhere or like, touch people or have any sort of impact on people's lives. But, you know, finding out that it actually does, and like people take the time to listen, and
you're a comfort, man.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
It is. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. But it's awesome though. It's a feeling that, it's not worth any money whatsoever.
No, it's completely
priceless.
Broke.
But donate to Patreon, please. We're fucking poor.
Oh yeah. By the way, we have a Patreon. Yeah. But yeah, it's like I said, it's crazy. It wasn't really something that I set out to do, but one of those things that just kind of happened. And
well, I'm really glad that you did. Like anytime you make anytime you put out something out there and you put out constantly and you find your fan base, those people may not know you, but you're becoming a friend of theirs, whether you know it or not.
Yeah. And that's a piece of this that I probably appreciate the most is being a part of someone's life. Cause like that's one of the things that got me into podcasting, like as a podcaster, but like listening to podcasts was driving around or sitting in the office, sitting at home, wherever I'm listening to podcasts and feeling like I'm actually a part of the conversation, to the point where I'm actually like speaking out, like thinking that they're going to respond back to the things that I'm saying out loud. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm just the listener. But it's pretty bizarre to like, you know, to be now on the other side of things where people are telling me like, yeah, I listen, and you know, sometimes like I want to like chime into the conversation because I feel like I'm literally there, being a part of the conversation and the group, and that's definitely the kind of environment that I want to keep on fostering.
That's the lightning in a bottle, man. Yeah. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I will happily admit that all forms of media and stuff that are big in my life right now are all because they have that access to it.
Right.
Like whenever I watch Letterkenny, I'm listening in because that reminds me of me and my friends sitting around. I feel like I could chime in the conversation at any moment. Yeah. And whenever I watch Critical Role, I play D&D. I love that. And I would love to be, I feel like I'm a member at their table that just really sucks at his job. Like there's,
yeah,
like it has that moment of, I want this to be I want this to feel like I'm here with friends. I think that's all we're looking for is closeness in this world.
Yeah.
To a good point. And we have gone real deep into this rabbit hole.
No, so. Dude, I'm glad we got to this point. Like I knew going in that it wasn't going to just be Kevin Smith shit. Like,
no.
Like it was he was definitely going to be a big part of the equation here. But I knew that we were going to go off on tangents because that's part of the podcast. And I'm glad that we got to just kind of naturally segue into some other stuff like this and some deeper stuff, because I don't typically get to do that with a show. Like it's I'm trying to have more of these less structured episodes going forward. Like it's nice to have those episodes that I look forward to where I'm like, I do a lot of research and I put a lot of work and effort into the episode, and then it comes time to recording and it actually pays off.
Yeah.
But it's also nice to have these episodes where it's straight up like a conversation where, we sat down. Like I didn't really do any prep work for this.
Neither did I. I watched the movie again because I really wanted to watch it again because that's just me.
Right.
And the Iron Silent Bob at the end is probably one of the greatest things ever.
So
I have gone
good.
through in my head over 18 times of how to make the armor at this point. I am like begging myself not to put in the time and money to make the Iron Bob armor. And I know that it's going to happen because I cannot stop myself at this point.
You could find a good foam smithing person to apprentice under, or
possibly, or I'm
things.
Just going to do like I did with everything else in my life and just go to YouTube. And
sure.
But no, I think that's the miracle behind Kevin Smith's work. He doesn't just talk to you about dick and fart jokes, and he doesn't just take you to a place where you're like, oh, this is hilarious. In each one of them, there's a message. In Clerks, the message was sometimes even on days you're not going to be there, and even in relationships you're not going to be in. It's like Silent Bob says at the end. It's the main goal of it, which is, I mean, there's a million different fine women out there in the world. Most of them don't cook you lasagna. Most of them just cheat on you.
Right.
And it's that plus sometimes on days when you're not even supposed to be there, the most creative stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Mallrats, where it's Stan Lee, where he's like, I traded it all away for just one more night. Like that's the whole thing. If you're going for love, go for it, because no matter what you have else in your life, what's worth that love to you?
Yeah.
And I mean, and Chasing Amy, sometimes it's just things may not always work out, but at least you had the ride. You may not need to know the details. Like every single movie teaches you something or another. Mm-hmm. Your faith may be strained and you may not have faith, but at least you can believe in something.
Right. Dogma.
I mean, Clerks too. Just because your life takes a turn and you're not where you thought you were going to be, doesn't mean your life is over.
Yeah.
And that's the entire story. Each one of these have a thing for us. Reboot was that thing as well, because just because the story that you knew and the times that you knew happened doesn't mean that the stories end. It means that they continue going, and all these people still had lives and all this stuff is still going on. That was the whole thing. Holden McNeil and Joey Lauren Adams from Chasing Amy, they have a daughter now. Mm-hmm. It was artificial insemination, and they have a kid that they're raising together because they still love each other, and they're able to say that to each other.
Yep.
Loki, who was killed in Dogma,
he
gets sent out. He doesn't have to wait outside the gates of heaven until the end of time. He's sent back to Earth. He winds up in the ocean, and it's the entire story of the Bourne legacy. So when he was like, they found me in the ocean, I was like, oh fucking hell, it's the Bourne identity all over again.
Right.
Loki is Jason Bourne.
I love how he's like, I'm Loki back before
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston with the fake British accent.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. It goes through all their stories. Jay and Silent Bob have refused to try. That's the point of Reboot. They refuse to change who they are. They've continued about their own life. They don't really pay that much attention to the internet still, even though we're at a point in time where the internet is unstoppable and you have to have it to do anything. Mm-hmm. They're doing Redbox. They're doing Redbox and humping.
Right.
And it goes as far as to show you that everyone else in the world around them has evolved to some point. Brody ended up ended up having his TV show, comic store, and then he moved to a mall that no one is going into. His life is definitely not going where you thought it was going to go, but at the exact same time, it's still happening.
Right.
And so I think that was his main goal for Reboot, was to tell us that your story, the big art points of it, the points of it that you have gone through to make a really good story, they may no longer be happening because you thought your entire story was over. Your big arch was over. You got the girl. You beat the movie. You won the championship race. You killed Seabiscuit. I never saw Seabiscuit. So I don't know.
I think that's what happens at
exactly.
the end. Yeah,
you
kill the horse.
It's fine.
Back to the glue factory for you, bitch.
Don't look into what happens to Kentucky Derby winners whenever they're done with their studying. Do not look into it. I promise you, it'll make you sad. So, well, other than that, I think the entire thing was, just because that part of your life is over, just because that part of your story is over, your main part that you can make a movie of, doesn't mean things end. They continue on whether you like it or not, and everyone else is going to continue on, so you need to be able to evolve with it as well.
Right.
And so that and the story of having to figure out how to be a parent. Like, I know you're a parent and I'm a parent, so that's something we had to go through, is figuring out, okay, we're responsible for this child now.
Right.
What do we do? And his idea of Jay, this loner stoner out of nowhere with one best friend in the entire world, who has literally met God, has gone through all this stuff, and yet he's scared to death of what if his daughter ends up just like him. That's insane. That's something we all come to terms with.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that my first time ever meeting Kevin Smith before Silent Bob Reboot was ever a thing, whenever he had me on stage and I was doing a evening with Kevin Smith with him, when I was on stage with him, one of the things I did say to him was, I could come out as your kid. Like, I could be looking like I'm a kid, like your kid, because I look like Silent Bob, but then I could start cussing like I'm Jay. And then I saw Reboot and I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. I was like, it's been so many years. You weren't even writing Reboot at the time. You were working on Mallrats 2, you asshole.
Right.
And then I saw it worked, and I was like, well, he made it way better, and he used his actual daughter, so I can't be mad at him.
Yeah.
Because at the time, she was so small, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. Well, man, like, that was so well put, that whole spiel.
I'm so sorry. I ramble.
No, I there's no way I could fucking top that. So I think we should just end it there.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the fucking perfect cherry on
thanks,
top.
Man. No, let's pop that cherry.
Yeah. Ted, thank you for, I guess, joining us.
No, Ted did a fantastic job.
Okay.
Oh my God.
He's alive!
No, my favorite thing about all this is that Ted is literally the Silent Bob of this episode.
That's pretty accurate.
Like, I'm coming in here like motherfucking Jay, and he's just over there like throwing out words of wisdom and knowing shit whenever we need to know it.
Snoogans. Yeah. Well, yeah, let's tie a bow on this bitch and peace out. Jaren, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor, and I hope to God that you come back soon.
I hope the fans like it. I mean, I would love, because I know that tomorrow you're going to get, like, not tomorrow, the day that this comes out. Let's call it fair. 3 days after this comes out, you're going to get fan mail that's just like, I hate the Jaren guy. I don't like that character at all. That one should have died in the beginnings.
Bold of you to assume that, like, anyone reaches out.
Oh, no, you have fans.
I assume there's anyone to reach out.
Dude, it's like an amputee trying to masturbate. We'll find a way. Listen, there's just...
Yes. All right, Jeff Goldblum. Life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
The only man on earth that can make verbal crutches look good.
Oh, my God. Just not only verbal crutches, like... Jeff Goldblum is such a... Have you seen his show on Netflix?
Is that on Netflix or Disney Plus?
Oh, it might be Disney Plus. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus.
I've been meaning to check it out, but
there's an episode where he tattoos his own face on somebody's body.
Really?
He goes to a Jeff Goldblum, because there's a city out there that has a Jeff Goldblum day, and there's the tattoo company, tattoo people in the area do specials for their tattoos on Jeff Goldblum day. And so he comes in, and everyone's like so excited to see him, and he convinces one of the people to let him tattoo his own face on them.
And why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, completely understandable. But what I'm saying is that's the kind of draw that Jeff Goldblum has. He was able to turn into a horrific monster in The Fly, and at the same time, he was a sex symbol. Like,
and tune in next time with Jaren and David and Ted as we talk about Jeff Goldblum.
So, The Fly. Let me tell you about The Fly now. No. I mean, we could name that episode Pretty Fly for a White Guy. Sorry.
As Ted would say, are you proud of that one?
Yeah, I am. I have no shame. The shame I had was sold to a circus man in 1942, and he has used it since then to create Chris Farley and Jack Black, and at one point he created John Belushi, but then he had to pull from multiple different people, so it's really bad.
Well, at the end of the day, you're a dad. You're allowed to make dad jokes.
Oh, yeah, no, dude, I was making dad jokes before I was a dad. I was out there. I was like, before my seed dropped, my jokes did. It was not even okay. No. I'm not that hard up. Well, I mean, but
I'm hard up.
Sorry.
All right. Well, yeah. Like I said, we're gonna peace out this bitch.
Yeah. It was nice to meet you guys.
Yes. Thank
you. Not
you.
you, but the viewers like you.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
This podcast is brought to you by viewers like you.
Once again, please subscribe to the Patreon. These people work very hard for their money, and you supporting them gives them great content like this right here, what you're hearing. Also, if you don't like this content, this right here, what you're hearing, please still subscribe to the Patreon so they will never bring me back. Just make sure you leave a note of why you're subscribing, either me back or not me back. Let's do a vote here. Let's put it to a vote with money. Kind of like the actual elections. Oh, no.
I'd like to make it known that I did not hold a knife or a gun or anything to Jaren and make him
say no. I
just
believe in paying artists because all artists deserve to be paid for what they do, and this is a form of art. I mean, by Wikipedia rules.
Help me, I'm poor. That's just my tagline. Actually, my tagline is be kind, stay geeky, eat lots of cheesecake. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Remember to love each other.